If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
The blah-blah-blah.
Sending out good vibes.
Blah-blah-blah.
Good vibes.
Blah-blah-blah.
Good vibes.
Blah-blah-blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that.
Grimerica. 1977, like Robert Plant's son died. A couple years before, they get into a car accident. They have this tour and all this crazy stuff happens, and then a couple years later, John Bonham dies.
Okay, guys, welcome back to Grimerica Show. We are going to be chatting with Christopher Knowles a little bit later. Surprised it took over 400 episodes, or almost 400 episodes to have him on the podcast. Over 400 if you count all the black budget stuff, I suppose. But yeah, we finally had him on, the Secret Sun blog guy. Some great stuff. He's been on THC a couple of times, and he has a great interview here. One for the books. We got Graham, Christmas Party Dunlop. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
Did you have fun at the Fandango last night?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, we had another 4.5 hour shit show Fandango with the Gralien Report. Yeah, well, with Micah Hanks, no longer of the Gralien Report. No longer called the Gralien Report.
So he changed his whole Micah Hanks program.
To the Micah Hanks program, yeah. So we had Micah Hanks on, and we had the Cruising with Steak guys, and the Cat in the Box guys, and Felix came in, and we had some callers come in and suggest uranium-tipped bullets for killing Bigfoot and other things. So that was a fun podcast. One for the books. The 5th annual Fandango shit show.
Yeah, it was good. Fun.
And now we are working on our Sunday to make sure we have some pre-recorded intros so that we can get through the holiday season without missing a beat.
So we're recording this before Christmas, and it'll come out slightly after Christmas. So nice, awesome, long chat with Christopher Knowles. We get onto all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's just been long overdue.
Yeah, long overdue. It's about time we had Chris on the show.
He's got a new book out. It's a fiction, like a novel. It's fantastic. So check that out.
What was it called again?
He Will Live Up in the Sky.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, it's really good.
I still got to get a copy of that novel by Napoleon Hill at some point.
Yeah. So I want to share a synchronicity that was shared by Justin from Cat in the Box on the Fandango, but for those people that didn't make it through the 4-hour slog, I could...
What's a slog?
Like, what?
What's a slog? I've never heard of a slog. I've never heard of slog used, period.
Really?
Let alone in reference to podcasting.
I don't know, like a long, hard-nosed. I don't know. I can't describe it. You should know.
Okay. I should know that it's a slog.
Yeah.
It was a good slog, a fun slog. The stream presented some problems, but everything worked out in the end. We still, even with all the stream issues, we still ended up with like a 3.5 hour YouTube video at the end of it all. So
that's good.
Couldn't have been too bad. Let's go back to an oldie.
I want a good score for my synchronicity. If Graham reads it out, then Darren might give it to me. Hey, don't you please read it low, yeah.
Wow. I just looked up slog. Work hard over a period of time.
Nice. Was it a slog?
I said work. Like, I was hard. I was going to say hard work. Yeah,
it was effort.
Yeah, it was effort.
It was work.
4-hour slog, yeah.
So, all right, let's hear the synchro. I just heard it yesterday, so it's going to be less of a brah.
Well, the weird thing was I was thinking about...
I think I gave it a 9.
I was thinking about texting... You gave it a 9.1. I was thinking about texting Justin all day long for, this was just one of those weird things when I kept meaning to go do it and I never did it. And then I get a text like this from him, and it's mind-blowing, right? So he says, Grambo, what the fuck? So as you know, I'm learning a couple new languages, and as such, I've done some research on how to better absorb them. That research led me to this video in which the main guy uses an example of holding up a magazine and simply pointing to things on the cover and in it, as well as having his tutors explain what they are. No English, just in the target language. The first image is a picture of him holding up the magazine. So he sent me an image of that. This guy on the video holding up this magazine. He does this a couple times in the video. Just a few minutes ago. So now he's explaining what happened at work. Just a few minutes ago, one of my guys had an accident with one of the bales of mixed paper for recycling, and it busted open inside the van. So he shows a picture of this, like, you know, thousands of
magazines,
papers and magazines
from the recycling thing.
I was helping him clean up, and as I was finishing up, this magazine caught my eye. I grabbed it, thinking it was the same one. I jump on YouTube, find the video, and lo and behold, it is. The magazine is from 2014. The video was posted in 2018. I just watched it a couple times within the last week. What are the odds? And he shows a picture of the magazine, and it's like Sunset 2014 Camping Guide. I mean, it's not even it's kind of an obscure magazine too. So we were talking on the Fandango. I was like, it's got this thing. He was going to look through it and see if there's anything that jumped out at him. And I was like looking at the things on the front, like secret campsites.
Secret camping for CAC.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we're going to find one of the secret campsites to meet at in there.
Could be.
So yeah, Darren rated it pretty high.
I was pretty high at the
also,
time.
Darren was learning a second language as well, which was weird.
Oh yeah, we've both been learning the
theme,
same second language for like the same amount of time.
Well, he's been learning other ones too, like Mandarin as well.
But we're both
Mandarin
learning French,
Japanese,
Mandarin.
Yeah, Mandarin.
And Micah was learning Portuguese.
Yeah.
Portuguese? Yeah. Or Polish, or no, it was Portuguese. That's right. Portuguese. Yeah.
So yeah, great synchro.
Nice little synchro for our buddy Justin, newsletter Justin. Of course, Adam's been helping out with the newsletter lately, but Justin created that shit.
I got another one for you too.
Another synchro?
Yeah.
All right, let's hear it.
First of all, I love getting these emails from people. Honestly, we love the community and hearing from everybody. Trip reports, synchros, sightings, all that kind of stuff. It's fun to get everybody involved in these episodes. So here's another one. It's called a manifestation synchro. How goes it, boys? I've got a bit of an ongoing experience having to do with a restaurant I work at on the weekends. The location is well known in the area for its deep fried hot dogs and cold beer. And there are regulars, but occasionally in a day, my coworkers and I would mention someone we don't usually talk about. And oddly enough, sometimes we'll see them that day. The most recent instance of this happened today at the time of me writing this. I saw someone looking at me like they had recognized me from somewhere, and in my head, I thought he looked like a truck driver buddy I'd been working with recently at my other job, unrelated to where I was at the time. He wasn't my buddy after all, and I gave him his change back, and he walked out. Within the hour, my truck driver buddy walks in, going on to his son about how he hadn't been in the restaurant for over a decade, only to look up and recognize me. I was floored, and I explained the situation of the stranger from earlier to him, and we had a chuckle about this manifestation. It's an odd phenomenon for sure. I even had a conversation with my coworker about it, who confirmed that people will show up in the restaurant almost like they've been summoned from a genie's lamp. Now, Darren, I don't want to influence your decision, but I'm on a monthly for you guys. Happy holidays to everyone. Love you guys, and thank you for your courage. Colin O.
Not a synchro.
Thanks, Colin. I love it.
Precog, right?
Well,
He was pre-recognizing his buddy. Because time's not linear.
I don't know. Was he though?
Ripple before the
So I had one similar to this in like 1988 or 89. I've
recall.
told this on the show before, but I'm going to tell it
Several
again
times.
because it's very. What?
Several times.
You don't. Hang on.
Okay.
You don't know. You don't remember if this is the one I'm going to tell you.
I know all your
So
stories.
I'm driving the back roads in Maple Ridge, right? With my buddy, me and Dave Farrell, driving the back roads. My old buddy, him and I playing hockey were awesome. Like 1, 2, boom, boom.
You still in touch
Really
with Dave
good.
Farrell?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Did you listen to the show?
No, none of my old friends listen to the show.
They don't want nothing to do with it. I think like two.
They probably
of my,
think I
two
went
or
off the
three
deep
of my
end or
old
something.
friends listen to the show. Yeah.
So driving up these back roads in Maple Ridge, like back roads kind of, and we see this car go by, and we're like, hey, that looked like Jim Day. And Jim Day is like not even a friend of ours. He's an acquaintance. He's like old, a couple years older. And the next car that goes by, Jim Day's in the car, and we both just go, oh, there's Jim Day right there, like.
Pre-con.
And it just seemed, I don't know, we freaked out at the time just thinking it was a weird coincidence or something.
This was pre-synchro looking out foreground.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Nice one. I'm not going to rate yours very high. I'm not even going to rate it.
I don't want to rate it.
All right. Oh, did you see the nice email we got from JP this morning? He rescinded his remarks.
Oh, that's good. This is the guy that thought you were berating the supporters?
He thought I was berating him specifically, it sounded like.
No.
But he thought I was berating everyone, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes you get a little.
Sometimes I get a little hard on you motherfuckers.
Yeah, but I think he took it the wrong way probably. But thanks for the email.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out.
Yeah.
Send a selfie with him and Cam, buddy Cam Hale. Yeah, good to have you back.
Yeah, you mean well. You just sometimes you might come across the wrong way or something. But
I mostly mean well.
Sometimes you're pretty high, so you never know.
Sometimes I don't give a fuck. I'm only human. What else you got? Got some. What did we?
I got a couple of quotes as well. We got to. What else do we got to?
Oh, that jingle. That jingle does work.
Thanks to everybody for supporting the show because it's important. And
another year of support.
Darren got a new computer recently to do the stream and stuff, but I think we're having some issues with.
I returned Wirecast today, so we'll see.
What is that? Is that electronic, like a
That's
digital
a software
return?
program? Yeah.
Digital return, really?
Digital return. It says 30 days, so
didn't work.
Nah, I don't want to figure it out. Fuck it. OBS worked great and at very low CPU usage, so I'm gonna get that money back, and I'm gonna invest it in someone to.
Because Wirecast was expensive, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like $500, and then I'm gonna pay someone to remote in an OBS Pro and set it all up. They can set up some stuff so that I just have to switch through it. They could probably make it look as good as Wirecast somehow.
That's good.
And we'll save the money. And yeah, it was pretty frustrating trying to get that stream going yesterday. So it's good to be back on OBS. I know how it works a little better. So
yeah, because it crashed a few times then?
Crashed like 4 times.
Yeah, that's weird.
Over and over and over, and it's streaming 3 or 4 times. Oh, the problem with OBS, I guess, is that we'll have to go back to restream.
Right.
Which isn't the end of the world. Could be worse. So we'll be back on another monthly expense.
Because that Wirecast was supposed to
the Wirecast was supposed to get rid of a monthly expense. It was supposed to get rid of the restream expense. But yeah, that's not going to happen now. The restream expense is going to be back and better than ever.
How much is that one again?
I think it's going to be like $40 a month, US.
Yeah.
USD.
So about 60 Canadian.
Yeah. 80 Canadian. 100?
No. It's like 1.32 right now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Did you just convert? Fuck, we keep it up. That $40 we got on the counter over there is going to be worth 100. So yeah, last episode of 2019.
Yeah, this will be good. Yeah, I'm going to start a new new
decade.
I'm going to start some new intentions for next year and
2020.
New diet and exercise, and got to get back into it. I'm just feeling rough.
Yeah.
I need it's like all or nothing for me. With me, I can't fucking play around with sugar and shit. It just.
You got to bounce back, buddy. 2020, you're bouncing back.
Yeah.
2019, bit of a whirlwind. First successful CAC. End of some things, beginning of some things. It'll be good to go into 2020. It's a nice new decade, clean slate, and a couple of events lined up, a couple of great events lined up, a couple of meetups lined up, specifically at the Vision Quest coming up in March at the Commune.
Why are you calling that a Vision Quest? It's not really
because we're going on a Vision Quest.
Really?
Yeah.
Who's taking you on that?
I think I might be driving.
No. But I mean, there's it's a shamanic thing, right? You're not going into the woods for 3 days without food, are you, or something like that?
No. We're just going to eat some
Vision
psychedelics
Quest?
and wander around the commune property.
Right.
looking for visions.
Right. So it's not an official vision quest.
Who decides an official vision quest? I'd like to think it's the status Indian of the group. But the white dude says no. I think it's pretty official.
Okay.
We won't know
that's
till
fine.
after, I guess.
He's
We'll
just going
see.
to wander around the property.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. Then we'll decide after how official it was.
Well, it is a good time. It's solstice,
It's the
right?
equinox.
Or equinox.
Solstice was yesterday.
Yep. Yeah.
Equinox is
In 3 months away.
3 months. Yeah. What's that like?
Oh, that'll fly by.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on.
90 days
Yeah.
away. That shit'll go by like fucking nothing.
Yeah. CAC's all sold out in April, right?
CAC in April is sold out.
That's Contact at the Cabin in Utah. That's
But we are
David
launching.
Matheson, the Sky Myths.
Yeah.
Star Myths.
By January 10th or so, I'll be officially selling the new Randall Carlson one. I got to design the website and all that. So that'll be like the 20th to the 26th. Or no, sorry. It's the 21st to the 26th of September. So it's
Where's that?
5 nights, 6 days, Soap Lake Spa and Resort.
Oh, okay. That is in Washington. Yeah.
Just it's like in the it's in the cataract.
Yeah.
From in Grand Coulee. So it'll be like 20 minutes up the road from Dry Falls, and we got.
Are you going to spend the 5 days there traveling around that area then?
Yeah,
And
we're gonna
using
do
Soap Lake as a
we'll do
head, like
4 days of traveling around and presentation day. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, that will be with Randall.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. I'm actually working on maybe bringing someone else along just to hang out for a couple days as well, and because it just happens to be right around a new moon, so
good.
Might be good timing for some star watching.
Oh, especially out there, yeah.
Yeah. So I might line up double whammy at that one because it just so happens that I know a star guy who's a huge Randall Carlson fan. And he knows a lot about geology too. So it's like the perfect couple.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to set that up. Either way, it's going to be a stacked event. It's going to be our longest event. I mean, the other one was 10 days, but that we had to run through a bunch of people. This one's 5 nights, 6 days. So I mean,
for one group.
Yeah, so one group, 25 spots only. Actually, technically, I think we're down to like 21 or 22 because I've gotten several emails already from people who say they want to be on the list. So it's going to go fast, and there's absolutely no extension on this one. I can't get any more space. So it's 25 spots. That's it.
Right on. That sounds good. And then we were thinking ahead to 2021.
2021, I think.
Might be Contact at the Castle, maybe?
Contact at the Castle is looking like July 2021. We'll head over to the UK, you fucks. I've got a friend not a friend of mine, but a friend I've recently met through a friend that's doing some running around in the UK and getting some venues for me and looking at castles.
I got someone else looking
I
at
might be able to
too.
have some castles with some teepees set up on the property for some extra lodging.
Nice. That'd be great.
Yeah, so we're looking at all sorts of options there. Probably be a nice little event. If we do that one, I think some stars will align and we'll have a really great show over there. I think what's going to happen is these UK people are going to have to wait longer, but they could get the best one yet.
Right.
And then we'll just grow from there.
We'll have to do another little weekend one. In the
Good.
meantime, we'll do another weekend one. Like I'd like to do like a weekend sort of.
Well, I want to get into doing like 1 or 2 a year at the commune that are just like
right.
wide open, don't cost nothing. Bring your tent, meet up.
We got to come up with a better name too. For the
Contact at the commune.
Yeah.
I like. Let's make it nice and military. Like,
No, more spiritual.
The retreat.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure something out.
That's what the Vision Quest is for.
That's right. Okay, come up with a name first.
Come up with a name at the Vision Quest. What else we got? Oh yeah, so the other thing, I was talking to my buddy Dave Matheson the other day, and I think we'll because I got tons of people. See, no one believed me when I said 10 months before that this thing was going to sell out quick. So now here we are. We're like 6 months before the event.
4 months. It's coming up fast.
4.5 months before the event, and people want in. And I'm like, I can't extend it anymore. I've already extended it twice. Yeah. We're out of extensions. Yeah. I've already ordered the towels. Right. So we're maxed. And people want to keep going. So I was talking to Dave. I think we'll do that as an annual. So we'll go back. If this one goes well, I think what I'm going to do at this one, we'll make that one a nice little 1 weekend a year. Zip in, zip out.
Yeah. Well, that's good. But I mean, I want to do some other topics too for weekends.
Well, you better start giving me some fucking names and some info.
Yeah, I will.
Because I can't read your minds. We've already worked out that we can't read each other's minds. Every time we try, things get forgotten. I still blame you for leaving that stuff in Oregon.
Yeah, yeah. So, wait, before we go off that topic,
contact at thecabin.com.
Yeah.
Everything there is sold out right now. So, but pretty soon I'm going to I'll start adding the next pages with waiting lists for other events and sign up for Scablands.
While we're on topics of initiatives and stuff we're doing, we're also producing some audiobooks now too. So we're going to have...
Song of the Immortal Beloved is for sale now. Buy it if you can. The link's in the show notes.
We've also done that at Recovery Dharma and F is... What is that called again? The F is for Fascism or the what? Understanding the F word by Dave McGowan.
Yep. That'll be coming out. Well, that'll be up to her, but I'll be sending her the files right away.
We're doing the manifesto.
We're doing the manifesto as an official audiobook. So if you know of anything that's pre-copyright, or if you know of any... Because anything pre-copyright that's public domain, we can just do. Or any
authors out there that...
Or if you know any authors that want to have their stuff on audio or want to, talk to us, we come up with something that works for all parties involved and we can get that audio book produced, we'd love to do it. Support the show. We love all you guys that supported the show in 2019. The show wouldn't be looking at taking on another decade without you guys. Thered be no chance. Of course, we need you guys to just keep pumping those tires. Grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly. I mean, our support's always sort of creeping up, but like for you guys, we're really coming together for a while. We're coming along. It's sort of fallen off in the holiday season. So don't forget about us after Christmas. Now that all those Christmas expenses are out of the way, maybe you've been waiting to get Christmas over with so you can finally sign up for that monthly over at Grimerica.ca/support. It's still only about just under 1 in 100 of you, maybe 1 in 100 if we're lucky. That is supporting the show.
Yeah, we got to get that up.
Get up to 2, 3, 4. I mean, ideally it'd be 90 out of 100, but let's start with 2. Grimerica.ca/support. Sign up today. If you're finding some value,
to the black budget too. Did you say that? Did you mention the black
there's
budget?
Like 40 episodes in the black budget, and I'll give you Graham's phone number. And honestly, the value for value model doesn't work, and our value is we can't keep making this valuable product for you if you don't throw a little value back our way. Grimerica.ca/support. Some jingles. What do we got?
It's the profound quote of the week.
Oh.
Right.
Jeez. All right. Well, that gets cut off again. I thought you were going to replace that guy.
Well, I'm in the process of replacing this whole guy.
Okay. Do you want to go first on your quote?
No, you go. Okay, I'll go first.
What are you reading from?
I'm reading from the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Number 19. Give up sainthood, renounce wisdom, and it will be 100 times better for everyone. Give up kindness, renounce morality, and people will rediscover filial piety, and love.
Wow.
Word. Give up ingenuity, renounce profit, and bandits and thieves will disappear. These 3 are outward forms alone. They are not sufficient in themselves. It is important to see simplicity, to realize our true nature, to cast off selfishness, and temper desire.
Wow. That's a complicated one.
Yeah. I get the whole no thieves without stuff,
but I mean, give away friendship and what was it? Friendship or
give up kindness?
Kindness, yeah.
Renounce morality, and people will rediscover filial piety and love.
Yeah, I got to know what that filial piety means.
I don't know what either of those words mean, so that's part of the problem. We're too simple to understand the Tao.
We don't know anything. Okay, so I'm going to read from The Octopus of Global Control from Charlie Robinson. We got to get Charlie back on, talk about his new book. This is from the chapter subheading, Workers Not Thinkers. In our dream, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hand. The present education conventions fade from our minds, and unhampered by tradition, we work our own good will upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or of science. We are not to raise up among them authors, orators, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor will we cherish even the humbler ambition to raise up from among them lawyers, doctors, preachers, statesmen, of whom we now have ample supply. That was Reverend Frederick T. Gates, business advisor to John D. Rockefeller, Sr., 1913.
1913. Geez, only 106 years ago. 107 almost. 107 years ago next week.
You want me to continue on? I got another one in that vein.
Might as well do one more, yeah.
So, in that vein, same chapter, Workers Not Thinkers. We view with alarm the activity of the Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundations, agencies not in any way responsible to the people, in their efforts to control the policies of our state educational institutions, to fashion after their conception, and to standardize our courses of study, and to surround the institutions with conditions which menace true academic freedom and defeat the primary purpose of democracy, as heretofore preserved inviolate in our common schools, normal schools, and universities. And that was from the normal school section of the National Education Association from 1914.
Yeah, I was thinking about national education the other day and how fucked up it seems that people from coast to coast are just learning the same shit, you know? Doesn't seem like a smart idea.
Well, the same wrong shit, too. I mean,
most of the time it's wrong shit. Yeah. That's the problem with standardizing the whole fucking thing. Now you're wrong in the same direction. Before it was probably split up. You know, these guys were right about this, wrong about that. I don't know. It's a mess. I don't have a solution.
No.
Burn it down.
We don't know anything.
Burn it down. We don't know anything about anything. I don't know. Wow. What else you got?
That's about it, buddy. Just happy to finish off another slog.
Another 2019 slog?
Yeah.
2019 was a bit of a slog.
Looking forward to 2020, a new decade.
New decade.
New opportunities.
All sorts of new opportunities, all sort of great times, all sort of fantastic new listeners. All the listeners we picked up in 2019, we fucking love you. And looking forward to 2020. It's a happier place to be.
Maple syrup is the best. It's so good. Just be present with me and love me. Wow. 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 When they start doing this weird hello. Hello.
Hey, Grimericans, that's the way you do it.
What a great jingle. I'll play that whole song out at the end of the show. Big thanks to you guys. Thanks for another great year, buddy. I think we crammed out another like 70 or 80 fucking podcasts for you guys this year. Grimerica.ca/support. I'll stop now. Till next week, I'll stop begging for money. Enjoy the chat with the one and only Christopher Knowles.
Happy New Year. All right, we've got Christopher Knowles with us. Most of you will know him and have heard him before. I can't believe we haven't had him on yet. He's the author of Our Gods Wear Spandex and his new first novel, He Will Live Up in the Sky. Also, he's got the blog Secret Sun. Fantastic stuff. So welcome to the show, Christopher. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, it's definitely my pleasure. I really appreciate the invite.
Yeah.
I do. I'm gratified. It's an honor.
Sorry it took 400 shows. Next, I was looking. You were on THC, I think the first time. You were on THC, like 4 years ago?
I believe the first time I was on THC was 2015. So.
Yeah, I remember listening to that, and I was like, we got to get this guy on.
I know. It's like
and then
years we've been
THC
thinking about
again.
it.
We got to get this guy
on. I know.
on.
It's
Just,
awesome.
you know how it is. There's just so much shit to just keep talking about nonstop. It's just, we're sorry it took so long.
I do know how it is. I'm actually embarrassed by my first THC appearance because I was kind of on a lot of drugs at the time, and I was a little bit I don't know, kind of a little sedated when I did that show. So
well, it couldn't have been that bad because Darren was probably really high when he listened to it.
So. When I listened to it, I think.
but obviously he liked it.
Yeah, I was on a lot of nasty
speed.
pharmaceuticals at the time.
Oh, that's different. Yeah,
it was bad.
Hopefully you're not on. Hopefully you got off those things.
I certainly did, and it was not easy.
Wow,
not easy.
Wow,
it's a whole other story, isn't it? Right?
Yeah,
that's kind of the story of our time.
So
a lot of it up in Canada, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a problem up here. Not quite the same down there, but
in Western Canada, it is on the coast. Yeah. Vancouver's got to be one of the worst cities in North America, I would say, for that kind of shit.
Well, Vancouver's always been bad. I mean, I was a big fan of. You're probably going to laugh at me, but I was a big fan of Da Vinci's Inquest.
Okay.
You guys ever watch that show? Vancouver-based show?
No.
Okay, so I'll just tell you real quick. So Da Vinci's Inquest was basically what happened is that the X-Files used to shoot in, I think that it's Lionsgate or big studio out in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And they after they did the movie, they moved down to L.A. So there was hundreds of people out of work all of a sudden. So this guy named Chris Haddock started the show called Da Vinci's Inquest. And I can't believe I'm lecturing Canadians about a Canadian show. But it basically, he just hired everybody who worked on the X-Files, and it was a great show, and you guys should watch it.
Yeah, we should.
And I loved it because it was all the character actors that were on the X-Files were on it, and a lot of regulars, and this is an actress who I used to have a mad crush on named Sarah Strange. You know Sarah Strange up there?
No, haven't heard of her.
Oh, what are you guys watching up there, man?
I don't know, dude. We watch
your homegrown television.
We don't even watch television anymore, man.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, unless it's the odd Netflix or YouTube. Or Darren's been buying movies off of YouTube lately, so.
No, I'm off. I stopped.
Oh, you're off? You stopped that? Okay, good.
I am back on the. I'm not going to say what I'm doing, but I got my software back in order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it's getting harder and harder to watch anything now since the woke virus kind of took over.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Actually, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about.
I'm going to watch Jumanji 3 on the weekend. Am I going to get woke? I don't want to.
I don't know, man. Last movie I went to see was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I liked it. It was maybe an hour too long, and in the middle of it, some asshole pulled a fire alarm, and. Everybody was expecting, because this is right after, I don't know, one of these mass shooting events. It was literally a day after that. And everybody thought we were all going to get mowed down as we walked out, outside. Everybody's kind of walking very gingerly. And it just turned out some idiot pulled the fire alarm. But anyway, I hate going to the movies now. It's not fun anymore.
No, it really it's not. No, I try. I go to the odd one now. I still go. I do that more than watching them at home. That's for sure. But
I didn't get too woke by Jumanji 2. I rather enjoyed it.
It should be okay. That's probably light wokeness. It's not as bad as some of the stuff.
When I watched First Man, I stopped believing in the moon landing again. So I don't know if that
Okay.
counts as woke or unwoke or where that puts me, but I was back. I was
that's red pill.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's red pill.
Because I was.
they
okay.
took woke from us,
I was in the
and
moon
they're
landing.
trying to take red pill from us.
When I'm a kid, I'm in, all right, until I start the show, then I'm out. Then I'm back in. And then I watch First Man, and I don't even know because it's not even really about the moon. It's more about Neil Armstrong. But they just took off from the moon just perfect the first try. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not, there's no way.
Yeah. No, I used to be a big Apollo defender. And I think there's a couple things that really changed it for me. One of it is I looked at somebody had done like, I guess what's called like a parallax, I forget the term, but it's parallax something, and just showed that, at no point do you see anybody outside the perimeter of what is capable to film in a soundstage. You never see anybody like, 700 feet away, and you don't ever see like rolling hills on the lunar landscape and all this kind of stuff. But the other thing, and I blogged about this, the other thing that really kind of did for me is that they were talking about like, we don't know like the composition of like lunar dust, and we're setting our telescopes there so we can learn about lunar dust. And I was like, wait, didn't you bring home like 800 pounds of that shit on the Apollo missions? Like, why don't you just get it from them? So you're just like, whatever. I think this is sort of like a soft disclosure with that stuff. I think that Christopher Nolan movie was part of that as well.
What one was that?
Interstellar.
Oh,
So Interstellar with
I actually
Well,
enjoyed
you
that.
could even say Transformers with the dark side of the moon too. I mean, they're throwing that shit in everywhere.
Interstellar, that even brought a little tear to my eye at the end. He sees his daughter. She's all grown up. Am I woke now?
you're red pilled.
Perfect. A red pill is still a good thing? Or is that a bad thing now? I can't keep up.
They're trying to take.
know.
They're trying to take it away.
I don't know, man. You're just pilled.
All right.
You're a pillhead. Just whatever you choose. Listen, this whole thing with language is becoming so Orwellian that what the hell? How can you even keep up with it anymore?
It seems like it's beginning to swing now, though. More and more people have just kind of given up on the whole thing, and they're just like, they know it's ridiculous. Where they used to have to feel as though they were being forced to go along with it, now a lot of people are laughing at it. So that's, I think, better.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. I'm like a little pessimistic on that kind of stuff. I think that we're not over the hump yet.
Yeah.
I think we still got a ways to go.
For sure.
And you poor bastards up in Canada with that, Prime Minister, Commander in Woke, that ridiculous clown, Mr. Blackface up there. My God Almighty! Oh, that guy just makes me. How can you just like not cringe every time you see that guy's face?
We do.
we do.
I mean, we do. And we try. We'll especially cringe when you try and when you listen to him try and answer a question or avoid a question because he just won't even answer any questions. It's
dumb
unbelievable.
as hell. He's dumb.
I don't know. He plays dumb. I think he plays dumb like Bush played dumb. I think he.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
That
a
makes-
thespian. He's an actor. He's an actor.
Or even Clinton. They're all
They
pretty
all-
good at playing dumb.
Yeah.
They're all just acting fascists.
You don't think that Trump's not an actor? The guy's
I
been on
think Trump's
television
100%
for how
an
long?
actor.
I think he's like a lifetime actor. So
Yeah, for sure.
He's
whatever.
the next lead actor in the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, when you have to actually deal with the system, which I had to do this past year, and you just realize that laws are completely arbitrary, and if people don't feel like obeying the law, they don't obey the law. And if you have a problem with it, that's your problem. Too bad. Suck it up, Buttercup. You know what I'm saying? So we're really in a kind of state, very much reminiscent to me of at least late Roman Republic, if not like Rome during the crisis of the 2nd century. I mean, we're really in a very tenuous spot here because you can kick at the tires and the car will kind of hold up. But, if you just keep kicking out the sort of the foundation stones of your house, it's eventually going to collapse. And, what we're seeing is that so many people are just not realizing that everything is independent and works together. And you can't just keep messing with everything. You can't just keep like trying to reinvent the wheel. And I think a lot of this kind of woke stuff, it's just like, well, I'm so smart and I can just change the whole system just by changing my language and all this kind of stuff. But, you get to a point where there's no longer any social cohesion. And I don't know how far along you are up in Canada with that. I know that there's talk of, what is it? What's the exit up there now?
Yeah, we're right there.
Alberta exit.
Wexit is usually Wexit or...
Wexit. It sounds so lame.
I know. But we're fed up. We're fed up. We want to exit.
I think we're over it. No, I think we're
But
over
it's just not going to happen. I mean, there's no way it can happen.
I personally don't care. But I think we're over it. I haven't heard as much Wexit talk. It was like right after the election, we were out of here. But it's really died down.
A lot of people want to just become part of America, the state,
Well,
I just want to dissolve the union.
There was a hilarious, have you seen
Dissolve all the unions.
It's less laws is what we need. You said, the whole thing works a lot better. Like if you have a roundabout, everybody goes around the roundabout. There's no chaos. But when you have stoplights and all these extra things added to it, more laws, more policies, it makes it more. And instead of people saying what we need is less laws, more people are saying, I don't really like that they're doing that. We should make a law that makes it to where they can't do that. And that's where everybody's going now. Everyone's rushing into more laws. That's what I think.
Well, I'll tell you, the problem with that is that it becomes self-sustaining and it really gathers up its own momentum.
Yeah, totally.
And, these laws, they sort of sustain a bureaucracy to control and keep track of everything. And then the bureaucrats start to get very jealous of their power. Mm-hmm. But one of the problems, you guys in Alberta and Saskatchewan, you're kind of landlocked, Mm-hmm.
It's like being on the ocean, but it's dirt instead. It really is. When you look out, it's just like as far as you can see.
Oh, permafrost, right?
No, we don't have that here.
Trump's going to take Saskatchewan with Alberta and grab her by the vagina.
How long have you been waiting to drop that one? Did you steal that?
And then he stumbled through it.
Are you stealing shit from CBC?
Yeah.
Oh. This is what it's come to, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
love that old school A there too,
Yeah, it's hard to kick that.
You can't get
little
rid of that.
Bob and Doug action.
You can't get rid of that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get rid of that.
Well, I'll tell you something. One of the things that really bothers me these days is the loss of like regional flavor. I mean, I'm originally from Boston, and I came down here and I had to like lose my accent because I couldn't talk without people just interrupting me and saying, where are you from? Like, why do you talk like that? And and I was like, I'm from 250 miles up the goddamn highway. What do you think? This loss of regional flavor, accents being lost and I guess, sort of customs and everything just melding into this amorphous, flavorless gelatin, you certainly see that around here.
It's worse.
Well, it's all turning into vocal fry and up-talking. I mean, this is what's happening to us. Somehow we're taking on these weird accents.
It's too much TV.
That's not the TV.
Is up-talking like when you end on
when you end on a high note, like you talk like that, you up-talk like that?
Every time you send a sentence, it ends on a high note.
Yeah, what's funny about that though? Talk about regional flavor. I mean, that whole way of speaking, you can trace back to the Valley Girls, San Fernando Valley of like the late 70s and the early 80s. And there's actually like a song that Frank Zappa's daughter recorded that sort of mocked that whole way of speaking. And for some reason, now it's like politicians and television hosts and like everybody talks like that. And it's like, do you understand where that came from? I guess you call it up-talking. I call it.
Well, I think it's a new strain of Valley Girl, but it's the vocal fry.
Well, the radio does it here. Have you noticed the local stations here do it? All of them do it.
Yeah, it's just I think it's like a consequence of us all watching the same fucking movies and the same TV shows.
I think they're trained to do it.
I think so too.
Yep.
Think so?
Yep.
But that's what your blog about the wokeness was fantastic because I've been thinking about that a lot lately too, how it's really not working. And I think if I remember correctly, you thought it seemed like there was a little bit of intention behind this. Like it's ruining a lot of how do you say, like Hollywood and some other things, and do you think there's something behind that?
Well, one of the things I try to look at like where it started. And so this is what happened. People don't realize that we sort of had like a soft civil war in the United States in the late 60s. It wasn't really kind of seen that way, but it basically was like, civil war light, basically.
You mean when Kennedy got shot?
Well, this is a little later. This is the later 60s. Well, I guess when Robert Kennedy got shot. But you sort of had this running battle between, the quote unquote establishment and the quote unquote, I don't know, Aquarian generation, the hippies. I don't know how you would describe these people. But you had this light civil war, soft civil war, and the establishment definitively won. And what happened is a lot of the people who were involved in a lot of these radical groups went off and they sort of found sanctuary in these small
institutions.
Well, the institutions, but also like these small New England colleges, like these small New England liberal arts colleges in states like in Vermont and upstate New York and rural Ohio. Actually a lot of areas that are pretty close to the Canadian border. So and then they this whole political correctness started to gestate, and it was sort of like a soft-boiled communism, but it was very hippified. It was, sort of fed through this hippie baby boomer mentality. And, then we started to see things like intersectionalism pop up. So all this stuff was really sort of gestating along, and nobody was really paying much attention to it. I think, I very seriously think that like people in the KGB and the Chinese intelligence services were feeding this stuff. And I actually know this for a fact because when I was a kid, I was hanging around a hardcore club that was run by the what was called the RCYP. I think it was Revolutionary Communist Youth Party or Brigades or something. I forget the exact term. But so I was hanging out with these guys, and I would read these like papers, and it was all like very clearly like Maoist, and it was like it was this weird sectarianism where it was like anti-Castro, anti-Russian, pro-Chinese. So it was clear that it was being bankrolled by the Chinese government, and it was this movement that I don't know how many, maybe 100 people in the entire country were belonging to. But anyway, the point is that all this stuff was being fed to these colleges, all these professors and so on in these colleges, and in the institutions, some of these nonprofits and NGOs and so on. So this whole thing was just kind of metastasizing, and nobody's really paying attention to it because nobody took it seriously. But it really started to erupt in the late 80s and early 90s, and it was this whole thing with political correctness and so on. And it was a big thing in the early 90s, and it just sort of died down again. And it didn't really kick up until Barack Obama was reelected. And in my opinion, my very strong opinion, is the reason why it started kicking up again around 2011, 2012 was because of the Occupy movement. Because what you had in the Occupy movement is you had like this ragtag band of everybody who was sort of dissatisfied with the system. And you had people who were like libertarians talking to people who were anarchists, talking to people who were communists. I mean, a lot of people were sort of meeting and expressing ideas that, really threatened the system by, creating like a unified front. And that's why all this, this woke shit started getting fed into the system, because it atomized everybody into identity groups, and it set everybody apart, and it set everybody against each other. But, the thing that I wrote about in that blog is just how destructive it's been to the people, who take on this stuff. I mean, all these New England colleges are all going out of business. It's a bloodbath up there. All these New England colleges that are really the nursery for wokeness. They're really like the incubation pod for wokeness. They're all getting hammered. They're all losing money hand over fist. A lot of them just closing up shop on graduation day. It's the last day of class, and they said, "Sorry, we're closing. good luck to you. Do whatever you want with the credits. They might not be transferable because we lost our accreditation. We didn't tell you that, 6 months ago, all this kind of stuff. And everything that sort of takes on wokeness ends up losing, money, losing credibility, losing prestige. So you really have to wonder, is like, what is the real goal of this stuff? Is it to create like this Orwellian communitarian kind of state where everybody's language is being monitored, or is it actually like the opposite? Is it some sort of anti-insurrectional counterinsurgency psyop that is basically destroying, the quote unquote left from within? So I don't know yet, because I don't know which way it's going, but I can certainly see, I can read the tea leaves and like everybody, there's a term now. It's like get woke, go broke. And it's so true. Yeah. Hollywood will make these woke movies and they'll lose hundreds of millions of dollars on them. It's just astonishing to me.
But if you look at that, like Hollywood, that whole Hollywood as being another just tentacle of the control mechanism, then it could be that they're just trying to squeeze that last bit out of it. It's like that whole model is dying. The network television, the mainstream animal is like fucking collapsing before us. And it's like, they're either just trying to squeeze as much as they can out of it for the people that are so fucking into it that doesn't matter, or they're just trying to like add as much confusion to the shit as possible before it completely flops over. Or it's just like, that thing that's dying on the beach that you need to stay away from because it's just flopping around and getting crazy.
Flailing.
Flailing around at this point. But the way I look at it, it would make sense to destroy the left, because the left has always really just been a controlled puppet to the right in the fascist fucking machine. So they want to dissolve that left so that it can, now they can work with, instead of having a left and a right, or left and a right, quote, they'll have the new left and right. It'll just be a little further to the right, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think
further to the left.
No, further. Well, it'll seem like it's further to the left, but what they're trying to do is act like the left, because there isn't really a left, and they just want to get the fucking social shit out of there.
Yeah, they're trying to divide more.
Yeah,
more
that's
divisive.
exactly what it's all about. More division.
It's not getting rid of the left. It's making more left and
fracturing
more right,
the left and the right into
more and more
into
and
just
more.
a stained glass.
I have a hard time.
Mess on the
I have a hard time seeing it come from the universities and the colleges, as opposed to in 2011 and 2012. If you think about the online payment, like all the PayPals and all these online things, and a guy like Soros who could spend $18 billion, which could never happen before. You could never influence the world or the culture with $18 billion through hundreds of NGOs and charities. And
started that.
Yeah, they started a long time ago, but now it's reached another pinnacle. A pinnacle of
totally.
You can just push whatever agenda you want through all these organizations. I think that's where.
But I think that's just a mechanism of what we've got now, because we've got the PayPals and everything else. I think, like back in the day, you didn't need that shit. You didn't need a million NGOs because there wasn't anyone really watching you. You had people by the balls when you had network news and a couple newspapers, and there wasn't like, there wasn't a YouTube to go to, or there wasn't, there's other than the dude in the parking lot putting the fucking
CD on the
CDs under your
or
windshield, or the flyer under your windshield. There wasn't anyone causing a ruckus, so you didn't need to filter in all this weird dissent from the outside, because it's just like, hey, just throw that shit on the nightly news. We'll throw this spin on Fox, this spin on here, this spin on here, and everyone will gobble it up in their own sort of way.
There was a ruckus, because Chris was just talking about the soft civil war that happened. I mean, so it might seem like there wasn't a ruckus, but there was a lot of shit happening decades ago, I think.
I think they're going to run it into the ground so they can have a massive government bailout of all those universities and colleges, and then it'll all be state-owned information.
Yeah, that's what I think the game they're running on the tech companies too.
Yeah, they're just going to run it right into the ground, and then all these people are going to complain that they're, like you said, they're not accredited, so that now their degree isn't worth anything, and all these people owe all this money in school loans, and so they're just going to say, look, the free market didn't work. You ran all your things into the ground, so now we're going to socialize the entire education system with a government bailout of $3 trillion.
And then they're going to do the same thing with the tech companies, but they're going to do the opposite, and they're going to do it in the name of free speech. They're going to be like, well, that's why these private companies can do whatever they want. They're private companies. Don't worry, Uncle Sam's going to step in and nationalize them.
Okay, now Chris's turn.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, to me, like, woke is fake left. And the thing you notice about woke is it's a way to kind of like look left, but not, threaten your economic standing. There's never any, with wokeness, there's never any sense that you're going to sacrifice your economic advantage. And, the thing I always say is that, quote unquote, social justice is always the enemy of economic justice. And if you look at a lot of the wokeness, really what it's about is helping along the whole process of cheap labor, quote unquote diversity. You fire somebody who's been at a company for like 30 years, and you replace them with diversity hires that you pay half as much to. And we see this. I'm very, very skeptical about a lot of the Me Too stuff, because I think what a lot of the Me Too stuff was about, if you looked at the people who really took it in the chin from that, it was about getting rid of like these people who have just been sitting in these jobs for a long time and aren't really producing anymore, but they become so powerful and influential that you can't really get rid of them. Everybody knew that Harvey Weinstein was a scumbag, since day one, but he was so powerful that you couldn't really get rid of him. So his economic fortunes kind of soften, and as soon as that happens, you can create this movement, and he becomes one of the casualties. Or somebody, that guy who is Matt Lauer on NBC television here, he's a guy who'd been in that position for more than 25 years, but he wasn't really America's hero anymore. The ratings were getting soft. So I think a lot of it was just really about just sort of clearing out the deadwood that was costing you too much money and replacing with cheaper hires. So, it's a really difficult thing, but I really think at the end of the day that wokeness is it's fake left. It's not real left. It's not about equal equality, payment. Yeah. Equal, it's not about equal access and economic justice. It's about saying the right buzzwords so you don't have to your husband who's making $500,000 a year selling widgets isn't going to lose his job because you've blessed it with the woke cloth. But it like I said, when these institutions and these companies and these schools and production companies and so on, they're getting hammered by it. So you really wonder what the game is. And I'm always looking for, I'm always looking for the hidden agenda. I'm always looking for the sneak, the sting, as it were. What's the sting here? Who's really getting played? And it's very hard for me to fathom at the moment, but like I said, and as I detailed, and the stuff that I detailed in the article was really the tip of the iceberg. But it's wokeness is just having absolutely devastating economic effects.
Have you looked into the occult symbolism in any of this stuff? Like I saw a video, a short documentary on the Extinction Rebellion and the symbolism and the ritual that's happening there. And I know you've gone back. Some of your work is fantastic when you put together the occult and the deep state and all that. So do you see any parallels with that at all?
Oh, sure. It's just that, well, like when I see the Extinction Rebellion logo, it looks to me like
it's
the
a
Black
reverse
Widow.
Well, yeah, I think it's a reverse rune as well.
It looks like the Black Widow. It's those hourglass, those facing triangles,
sideways hourglass. Yeah.
I'm always suspicious of any kind of symbols that you see nowadays. I think that at some point, people who are involved in graphic design and brand making and, these PR companies and just all these kind of people just sort of, they got the memo, they if they weren't on board with it before, like they are now. So it's just that this kind of symbolism is so ubiquitous. It's just so in your face all the time that it almost becomes numbing. It almost kind of cancels itself out because it's no longer a novelty. It's just everywhere you look.
And it's happening both ways, I think, too, because there's more and more people interested in symbolism and the occult and magic and synchronicities. And, there's a bunch of people being red pilled in that way. And now we're realizing that a lot of this stuff, the elites and the people that are running the fascist state that Darren's always talking about know about this. They know about the magic. They've been involved for decades.
States.
And they're using it,
Oh, it's baked into the pie, man. It's baked into the bricks from day one. I mean, this is the kind of thing that, I've done a lot of work on the blog. I'm currently like sort of in the midst of trying to reorganize my archives because it just got to the point that it's there's so much material and I haven't really organized it very well because it's just been accumulated over the years. But I had done, a lot of work looking at the history of symbolism, looking at the history of ritual, looking at the history of, these holidays. And you just start to realize that this is just the way it is. What had happened is that it wasn't really acknowledged, and there was just sort of this consensus that, a lot of companies were trying to build where they were trying to market to as many people as they could, as possible. So they wanted to avoid anything that was going to seem in any way suspicious or disreputable or, constantly maybe have like this sort of hint of the occult, whatever you can name, because it was all about mass marketing. So with the specialized marketing and, the whole reorientation of the markets, it is more and more about niche marketing. It's about marketing to very small and specific audiences with specific interests. So you just see so much of so much occult stuff. I mean, practically satanic stuff, I mean, it's almost like so many things going on today. I just think back to the 80s, what somebody like, I don't know, Jack Chick or somebody or Tony Alamo would say, they're like, see, I told you this is what's going to be happening. It's astonishing to me, seeing like these satanic statues on the steps of Capitol buildings down here. I mean, that's all a total CIA psyop, but still, I mean, it's there. So it's fascinating to me because so many things that you just assumed would never happen are happening. And a lot of it just has to do with that the brakes are off, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that, you don't really see mass marketing anymore. But again, I mean,
Can you see us? Can you see us right now? I want to show you this picture of this Hollywood Reporter, whatever magazine that came out on November 15 of 2017.
Okay.
And can you see us? Because I'll show
hold
you
it up to the camera there. Yeah.
Yes, I can see you.
We're gonna get sued now. Don't hold it up for more than 3 seconds.
What does it say on the bottom left there?
Can you hold it?
Go ahead, call us difficult.
Right.
But the way it is, it's an upside down pentagram. And it's the different colors all the way around. So you have the red and then the black.
You can hold it up closer. I was just kidding.
Yeah.
I think a picture's okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
and you see that sort of V shape in the jacket there. Sure.
And then the girl, and then that one girl, what's her name? That was the Mockingjay. She's right in the middle of the pentagram. So that's exactly what you were just talking about.
The
Hunger Games girl, yeah.
Is that Jennifer Lawrence?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. I'm not very good at all that.
Hunger Games
that trivia, but
probably pretty similar to how this ends.
But I just saw that when the Me Too thing started in 2017 there. That was like one of the first magazine covers that came out talking about it. You can call us difficult, you know.
Oh, well, do you remember the time somebody had pointed this out on the blog, and it's something that I hadn't even noticed myself, but the arrangement on the cover of the Time magazine was, you know, the whole thing that I'm always talking about with the star map for Lyra, you know, the constellation Lyra, and that the women were sort of arranged in that pattern, which a lot of people wouldn't even pick up on. You know, I'm constantly looking at Lyra, and I'm constantly looking at the symbolism, you know, behind Lyra, because I had discovered almost, I don't even remember how I discovered it, but that the Great Seal, both sides actually, encode Lyra, and that the eye in the pyramid that everybody's sort of been wondering about all these years is actually a star map of Lyra, and that the eye in the triangle floating above the pyramid is the Ring Nebula, which was discovered while they were working on the Great Seal. Like, there was a committee set up after the American Revolution to design the Great Seal, and in the midst of this process, the Ring Nebula was discovered by a French astronomer, and they took that as a sign. Like, that to me is the meaning of an Inuit Keptis. You know, his favorite our undertakings, because they'd seen this sign in the heavens. And if you look at the obverse with the eagle and the shield, I mean, that is taken directly from old depictions, old star maps of Lyra, which would have the eagle in that same exact position, and instead of a shield would have a harp in that same exact shape. And that what they just did is that they turned the strings of the harp into the stripes. And this is not speculation on my part, because actually the original United States passport had that image of Lyra, and John Adams, who was part of the committee to design the Great Seal, was like, you know, he wanted Lyra to be celebrated or canonized, or, you know, somehow adored, like some sort of adoration of this constellation. So, I mean, again, this is not speculation on my part. You know, you can see like these early documents.
So what did it mean to them?
Well, I don't know. I mean, but, you know, I mean, like there's, you know, one of the stars in Lyra is Vega, you know, and of course we have Las Vegas, you know, and I don't believe that Las Vegas means, I don't know, the fields or anything. I believe that Las Vegas is
for the Vegas
is a reference to Vega.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a Vega. The European Space Agency uses a Vega rocket. I mean, you just see this stuff all over the place. You know, most people don't really pay attention to it, but it's definitely there. And, you know, when this whole thing went down in Las Vegas, because I had been looking at Las Vegas since Chris Cornell died, and all of a sudden this happened. And I'll tell you guys a story, talk about synchronicity. So as that whole situation went down in Las Vegas, I was on the air with Richard Hoagland on his show, which at the time was being broadcast from a station in Las Vegas. So we were on the air in Las Vegas, like when that whole thing was going down, like literally at the same time. And then we were going to do a follow-up show, because I was looking at all this, you know, Vega and all the symbolism, and we couldn't get back on the air. Like he was basically banned from the air, because they knew I was going to be on talking about Vega and Lyra and all this kind of stuff. So make of that as you know, what you will. But Vega and Lyra are very, very important. But I don't know what exactly it means. It's open to interpretation. But I think that stretch of stellar real estate from galactic center up to Cepheus is very, very important to a lot of these occultists, because I think that one thing that people really underestimate is the importance of star magic in a lot of these occult systems. And, you know, if you really dig beneath the surface, a lot of things that you puzzle over, you know, certainly things in the Bible are all stellar allegories and metaphors and symbolism. And, you know, what it means, I don't know. But again, this, you know, you guys had talked about when I was on Gordon's show and we're talking about Lovecraft. I mean, Lovecraft was always talking about the stars and how the old ones and the deep ones and the this ones and the that ones, you know, came from the stars through starlight. And of course, I argued, and I will go to the mat to continue to argue that Lovecraft was basically reading a bunch of Alice Bailey books and saying, wow, this woman's crazy. I think this stuff would make great science fiction. So there you go.
We're doing an event in April with David Matheson and the star myths of the world, and he's got three or four massive books on all the constellations and the old myths and how some of the myths are all intertwined with the same systems. And
he was a literalist, right? He was a literalist Bible believer turned
star myths.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Now he thinks it's all just a giant allegory of the stars.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I haven't I got busy with the book and I got busy with a bunch of other stuff. I'm going to get back into it. But, I was looking at, for instance, the book of Revelation, and a lot of these things that people have always wondered, like, what does this mean? And what does this beast mean? And what does that beast mean? And like, what is this thing? What's this, the Whore of Babylon? What do all these things mean? And I kind of showed that, these are all, again, referring to constellations in a very specific area of the sky. For instance, I would argue very strongly, and I think I have the proof to back it up, that the Whore of Babylon, Mystery Babylon, the Scarlet Woman is a constellation called Coma Berenices, which was based on the Egyptian queen Berenice, and whose seat was in Alexandria, and of course Alexandria sits upon many waters, and all this kind of stuff. But, for instance, the beast from the sea, to me, is the cusp of Cancer and Leo, because it talks about the beast coming from the sea, and, that's the crab, that's crab coming out of the waters. It has, the feet of a lion and the bear and all this kind of stuff. And it's all, if you look at a star map, you'll see that it's bisecting that cusp going from Cancer, which is on the ecliptic on the zodiac, up to Ursa Major. So, and going also through Leo and Leo Minor. So, I very strongly believe that whoever wrote the Book of Revelation was very well versed in star magic, and I just think that star magic is just so central to so many different occult systems and magical systems, and of course religious systems. I think it was just forgotten. I think it was forgotten because maybe the study of the stars was forgotten. And one of the interesting things that you really have to take into account is that the quote unquote Dark Ages, a lot of scientists believe that was because of a volcano eruption that basically, people couldn't see the stars for like 200 years, right? Yeah. And so, they couldn't even see the sun. Yeah. So I think that was really very, very important that knowledge was lost. And when you talk about, again, the Great Seal, which everybody's always sort of had all their theories and stuff, but I showed how that the Great Seal, I did an overlay and it lines up point for point against Lyra. And how can, I don't think that's coincidence, especially when you realize that we know for a fact that, John Adams himself, the second president of the United States, was very fixated on Lyra, and he was part of a secret society called the Order of the Dragon. And it's very interesting because everybody thinks, the founding fathers were all Freemasons, and that's just not true. A lot of them were, but a lot of them were members of all these other kind of secret societies. And the case in point would be the Adam's father and son, who were part of this Order of the Dragon that was specifically, it was explicitly anti-Masonic. They John Quincy Adams was actually a presidential candidate for the anti-Masonic party. So that's something that has completely been written out of our history. This guy was a president of the United States, and then he became a candidate for the anti-Masonic party, and people have just completely forgotten this stuff. It's been written out of the history. So I don't know. I think we were taught that.
I don't know. I think we were taught that in like 6th or 7th grade in Virginia.
He's an
I'm
American.
I grew up in Virginia, so like I think I remember that being taught about how the two parties were. There was the anti-Masonic party, and it was really big, and it was very powerful, and it shut down a lot of things. But it also kind of almost seemed like it was like it wasn't real, like it was almost controlled so that it could quiet everything down, so that they could make it more of a secret type thing almost. But
I think that's debatable. I mean, but one of the things that the Anti-Masonic Party did is that it's really responsible for the creation of all these senior societies and these college fraternities. I mean, like the Greek system. I mean, all these organizations really have their roots in Freemasonry, and Freemasonry sort of became disreputable, and that led to, ironically, Skull and Bones and Scroll and Key and Wolf's Head and all these, senior societies at Yale and all these other, Phi Beta Kappa. I mean, all these fraternities and so on were really created by Freemasons to maintain that system without having, the Masonic tinge that had become sort of disreputable. But, of course, by the late 18th century, early 19th century, the anti-Masonic Party was totally forgotten, and you had record numbers of men. It would almost be something like, I don't know the percentage of adult men, but I think there was like 20 or 30 million men involved in Freemasonry, like at the turn of the century in this country. And I'm sure it wasn't that much different up in Canada either.
Wow.
Probably not. No.
Yeah, it's been here just as long for sure.
So was there any history to the, that you know about, to the Order of the Dragon? Like, I wonder where that all came from.
I believe, it's interesting because there's not a lot of history, because a lot of these secret societies were actually secret.
Yeah.
They were legitimately secret. I don't know if you had Tracy Twyman on your show, the late great.
No, we didn't. No.
But she had been involved back in the 90s with a dragon society. There was a guy named Nicholas de Vere who claimed to be a descendant of Dracula, and was part of this dragon society. And I'm thinking that possibly this Order of the Dragon that John Adams was part of might have been connected in some way to that. But you have the situation where the royal family of Britain claims to be descended from, Vlad the Impaler, right? So there's probably some sort of connection there. But again, I mean, Dracula, dragon, that's Draco. That's the constellation of Draco. I think that's pretty clear when you look at the symbolism. And Draco is interesting because the symbolism in the Bible, what it's really referring to is that, around the northern pole of the celestial globe, you have this, what looks to be like some sort of competition between Draco and Cepheus. And Cepheus is God. I mean, Cepheus, the word means gardener, right? So it's the Garden of Eden. And the Garden of Eden is again, that stretch of the Milky Way in between galactic center and Cepheus, which is the head of it. And if you look at the original, the Jewish priest Moses, the turban that they had was shaped like the constellation of Cepheus. So I think that that symbolism and that mythology, of the dragon trying to usurp God's power has to do with the pole stars, because of precession, and because of that wobble in the ecliptic. The pole star changes, right? I mean, every few, I don't know how many thousands of years, but every several thousands of years, the pole star changes. And that I think this knowledge was passed down because I think it has been, these things have been observed for tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
And, the symbolism and this mythology was again, it was secret. I mean, it was secret in Babylon, where so much of the star magic came into the West. And Gordon talks about that this really comes from Asia. It's a much earlier, what he calls the Laurasian culture. It's a much earlier, like tens and tens of thousands of years, because there was enough time to watch the pole star change, right? So I think the symbolism, it comes into the West through Zoroastrianism, which was kind kind of the dominant religion during the what was called the Babylonian captivity, when all the biblical material was written. And you know, a lot of the stuff, I mean, it's just all like venerated ancient star magic, and you know, the Draco and the dragon and all this kind of symbolism really, I think, comes from there. But it's also this sort of, again, that real estate in the sky went from Hydra, which is just below the ecliptic, to Draco, and those are sort of the twin dragons that you know, they guard. You know, this where you have Virgo and Leo and Orion and all these all those really central, powerful constellations that so many of our myths are derived from.
And then we got electricity and we went indoors.
Yes, and nobody looks at the stars anymore.
Like that has something to do with it. I mean, you know, what were you saying?
It does. Well, you know, it's funny because, all right, so here's an interesting story. So I'm from Boston, right? And, you know, very urban area, a lot of light pollution, and where I was living in particular, just tremendous light pollution. And I never really saw the stars, okay? And then I come down in Jersey and you have all this light pollution from New York and all the rest of it, and there's a highway right near here. We had gone on vacation down to the Cape Cod, and we went to the drive-ins, you know, out in Wellfleet, which is, you know, right near Provincetown. So you're like right on the edge of the Cape there. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that geography there.
Mm-hmm.
But we were watching, of all films, so this is back in the 90s, we were watching, at the drive-ins, we were watching Men in Black 2. And, you know, we'd been there, you know, we'd been in the car, and then like everybody was like, oh, you know, I want ice cream, I want soda, I want popcorn, all this kind of stuff. So I'm going out to, you know, to the refreshment stand, and I look up, and there's the goddamn Milky Way. And I'm like, son of a bitch. I thought, you know, when you see these depictions of the Milky Way in magazines and stuff, I always thought it was just a painting. I always thought it was fake. And it's like, holy shit, there it is right above my head. Oh my God. Like, what the hell? I was just like, I was transfixed by it. And because there's every damn star in the sky, like right above your head, because there's no light pollution out there. You're so far from Boston.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. And I'm sure you guys are up in, you know, near Calgary. I'm sure you can go like an hour away.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Go up the mountains and just see the same damn thing. And it boggles your mind. You're like, oh, okay. You know, and getting back to Gordon again, you know, Gordon was like, you know, that was television. That was the show. That was the movies.
Yeah.
For tens and tens and tens of thousands of years, you know. You know, the sun would go down and you'd go out and you'd look at the stars and, you know, tell all these stories about them.
Mm-hmm. And imagine how many shooting stars you'd see at every like half a year. The Perseids or whatever. What's the other one that comes through?
The Taurid
shower. I mean, you'd have all this stuff mapped out and timelines and everything, and you'd see all this stuff come through on a regular basis. And yeah, that's why we're going to Utah. And where are we going for?
Yeah, you've got to get out to Utah.
Bryce Canyon, Utah, for our Star Myth weekend. It's going to be fantastic.
I have no idea how many stars there are until you go out there.
Till you go to Bryce? Oh, I'm sure. I can.
Do you think it's a coincidence that the Mormons ended up there? You know, Mormons, which is totally Masonic and totally like ancient astronaut theory. I mean, the whole thing, you know, right?
There's a lot of stuff in that area for sure. That's
weird. A good point. Yeah.
It's going to be a hell of a trip. There's 2 spots left.
Yeah.
Where was I going with that?
Well, you know, just in summation though, because like, so people like hear like, people have 2 reactions when you start talking about star magic, because they're like, oh, that's everything just becomes astrology. And it's like, no, like astrology is like a very specific thing. It's, you know, it's about those 12 constellations on the ecliptic and the planets and the relation to it. It's, you know, to me, it's very boring because, you know, there are 88 constellations and you're focusing on 12, like really. But it's really at the core, like I've been reading a lot of Kenneth Grant stuff lately. Don't ask me why. I think it's because I'm completely masochistic. But, you know, he's always going on about the stuff. And Crowley was always going about the stuff, you know, the Astrum Argentum. And then that thing, you know, that Alan Moore thing where he's based on Lovecraft. It's the Stella Sapienti, the wise stars. So it's really something that people don't look at because they don't get, you know, it doesn't make any sense to them. Again, you know, we're all westernized and television, electricity and all this crap. We don't really take it seriously. But believe me, it's for real, and it's heavy, and some of it can get really dark, I mean, some of it can get really dark and heavy because it's all about like, I think a lot of the human sacrifice rituals throughout history were sort of based on, the sun and the constellations and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we know that about a lot of the Mesoamerican customs and everything. But like I said, Kenneth Grant, this kind of crazy Lovecraft, Crowley, catch as catch can, anything that, it all has to do with like raping 13-year-old girls when you really get to the core of the symbolism, and it's really fucked up. But it's all about, it's all about the stars and the positions of the stars and the sky and all this kind of stuff. People don't take it very seriously because it just doesn't seem like kind of heavy metal, but it is very heavy metal. It's very serious.
I think astronomy and astrology are like anatomy and a physiology, so that the two have to go together. The one is just the parts and pieces, the function, the form, and the other one is the function. And you need to see them together. And that's what a lot of people, I think, are still missing, is that you have these large orb bodies that are creating these tonal resonances that affect all sorts of things, the way that when it vibrates out. And I think that's what a lot of people have made these, there's certain frequencies that are coming from certain places in the galaxy, and you tune in to that vibration, and then you can begin to harness the energy from it.
Well, what else is coming from the stars is like massive amounts of radiation.
And cosmic dust and all that. And, all that kind of
and neutrons and positrons and you name it, all these cosmic particles and stuff. And, there are a lot of theories. I mean, there are a lot of theories that like human evolution is the product of like
Stardust.
The Earth being bombarded with neutrinos from a supernova. And that basically sort of kickstarted the process. And, one of the things I've been looking at is the supernova that took place in 1987, which was like, it was actually visible. You could see it in the sky, which is really unusual for these things, even though it's like, they say it's I'll tell you something. When I read a lot of astronomy and astrophysics stuff, I get to be very suspicious because some of it just seems like a little outlandish. Like, oh yeah, we took an inch square photograph with the Hubble, and there's like 10 trillion galaxies there. It's like, okay, whatever. Yeah. Funding time, grant time, but I think that that's another thing that's really, it's misunderstood. And I think a lot of these occult groups are very, very oriented towards the stars. And I think, what Lovecraft was talking about in the Call of Cthulhu and a lot of that kind of, that mythos, the Cthulhu mythos, I don't think he was just pulling that out of his hat. I mean, we know that he was very interested in astronomy, but I think he had access to a lot of these secret societies that planned a lot of their rituals according to the stars, the certain constellations rising. And like I said, some of that stuff could get really heavy and dark. It was not, it wasn't play. They were not kidding. They were not fooling around with that stuff.
It's being progressive. You continue to go in one direction, it leads to all sorts of crazy stuff after a while.
Well, the thing that worries me, again, we're talking about like the whole idea of like mass marketing and how that sort of put the brakes on a lot of crazy stuff. The thing that I worry about, and I'm not alone in this, but to me, it seems like certainly in America and probably in Canada as well, is that I just think that people are losing their minds. I think people are going insane. And I think people are going insane because they can't process all the information that they're being bombarded with every day.
Shocking.
And you have, well, exactly. And then you have all these like crazy occultists and these crazy Satanists and these crazy whoever, people who just like to stir shit up, just constantly feeding all these memes and symbols and all this stuff into the system. And if it's not affecting you consciously, it's affecting you subconsciously. I mean, occult symbols to me they're not play, I mean, I think a lot of them have like an innate power that they weren't designed, they were discovered. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the symbolism was not something that somebody goes, oh, I've got my compass and my rulers, I'm going to do this and this looks cool. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think a lot of stuff was revealed.
Yeah. And then the other thing is the massive problem is the egregores from the negativity and the fear porn of the mainstream media. I mean, that's got to be affecting everybody tenfold.
Totally.
To that.
Everybody's super
absolutely.
anxious now.
And also the drugs, right? Also the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that I've been just talking to people about, when you go on Twitter and everybody is just like, oh, well, first of all, they're constantly on an emotional knife's edge, but they're all sort of self-diagnosing, as PTSD or autistic or all these all this kind of stuff. And to me, I think what a lot of this has to do with is like getting these pharmaceuticals and staying on them, and because a lot of them are a lot of these heavy stimulants, but a lot of these medications, opioids, of course. I was on opioids for 13 years. I mean, it was all prescribed and everything like that. But I'll tell you, I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. I mean, I was just like constantly in a state of like emotional crisis.
Wow.
It's the damn drugs, it's like these goddamn opioids. It's like they're really, why do you think junkies are the way they are,
Yeah. So you got off them though? Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't okay.
No, it was a hard, but
it was hard, man. It was brutal.
But you got your life back.
Well, it's funny because I wasn't just on opioids. I was on benzodiazepines, Klonopin and Valium and shit like that, which is in some ways that stuff is worse. I was on just all kinds of like an epileptic medicine, which I really shouldn't have been on, and it's super, super toxic. I mean, they were giving me like antipsychotics as sleep aids. I mean, all this crazy stuff that like was all being used off label. Like I wasn't supposed to be taking this stuff for like what they wanted me to take. And
and this is all doc prescribed.
Yeah, well, the doctor got his license pulled. Oh. Surprise, surprise. Oh my God, it was brutal. And I'll tell you something. The thing with the opioids and stuff. I mean, I think that opioids, like if you get into a car accident or you just had surgery, like take Percocet or whatever, you need that, just sort of get over that hump. Mm-hmm. But I think long term, I think they actually make pain worse. I think they create pain. I think they screw up the signals, your dopamine and norepinephrine and all these kind of serotonin, all these chemicals that sort of keep you on an even keel and keep you like, kind of cool. They mess with those brain chemicals so badly that they actually manufacture pain. And my pain was just like completely out of control. It just kept, the more pills I took, the worse the pain got. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? I was like debilitated. It was brutal, man. I was just like, I'd have days and days and days where I couldn't do anything. I couldn't read. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't watch TV. I just like lie in bed and writhe from this incredible pain. And I just realized, oh shit, man, these drugs are causing this stuff. They're not fixing it. They're causing it. And you just kind of wonder, like, what kind of fucked up Orwellian, archonic, kind of thing is that? That they have you taking these cocktails of drugs that make whatever problem you have worse. So, like I said, when I go on Twitter and I see the way these people are just like so amped up emotionally and like have these hair trigger tempers and just ready to go off on anybody for any reason, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think you're probably on a shit ton of pharmaceuticals and they're just completely messing your brain up.
I think social media does even need to be though.
Yeah, like I stay off Twitter for that reason, and I ain't on shit except maybe some weed. And it's like, I gotta stay off Twitter because if I start going through the shit too much, I'm just all of a sudden I'm reading.
You're triggered, yeah.
And now I'm this. What is this guy saying? And now what's this guy up to? It's like, oh my God. And then I catch my blood pressure going up. So I'm like, I'm out of here. So this is why you got to stay away from all of it. The Facebook, the Twitter, the news cycle, all that shit is poison. And then you couple that with the fake food and the terror and the fear and the news and the comparing your life to everyone else and everything else. And it's like, no wonder everyone's fucking hooked on drugs and overeating.
It's designed to destroy us.
Addicted to everything else because they need to distract from the fact that they don't have any real fucking connection in their lives because everyone's staring at a fucking screen all day.
Yep.
Oh, I agree with you, man. It's like, get outside. I've been getting outside a lot. And
Or just talk to someone. Like talk to someone when you're in the waiting room at the doctor's office or wherever. I mean, I don't know. But you know what's funny is because like I'm always talking to people, and they look at me like I'm fucking crazy. Like, I was trying to talk to the, at the airport they got the little old ladies that wear the white hats, the white hat ladies. I think they're all
Cowboy
volunteers.
hats?
Yeah, they're there to like greet people when they come in.
Yeah.
And then there's like a circle.
that's an Alberta thing.
Yeah, it's totally an Alberta thing. But I just went over to try to start talking to them because they were there, and I'm like, hey, they're just like startled. It's like, I don't know. This is where the world's gotten to, I guess.
Well, they probably trained that you're making a distraction
Oh.
and that something else is going to happen.
No,
that's why you've approached them. I don't know. I'm sure they're trained. They're not just regular grandmas with cowboy hats, are they?
Some people really like it when you talk to, and other people are scared.
Yeah,
It's too bad. Maybe I'm scary.
maybe.
You're a little scary.
Yeah,
I don't think you're that
people
scary,
definitely need to get outside, though. I think like just getting, like you said, off the screen and
Everyone needs more nature for sure.
getting out in the world. And
Yep.
and you know what? Animals too, like dogs. Dogs will cure what ails you.
Yeah, I think
Like
we're going to
just hanging out and chilling with a
Oh, yeah?
dog.
Yeah. We're
You
going
know, dogs will fix you up
Nah,
good.
should get a
dogs are
service
high
pony.
maintenance. Cats are the where it's at.
Yeah, it's a
Dogs
therapy
are a
dog.
little high maintenance compared to a cat for sure.
Now we're getting a Weimaraner, which is, I guess, a cat-like dog.
Really?
Yeah,
This is much worse.
yeah.
The cat-like dog?
Supposedly, it cleans itself more so like a cat. Like
Can it go in
acts
the
more
litter
like
box?
A cat. No. It still goes outside.
You should get
though.
some of that like fake grass shit.
Oh,
Oh,
that stuff's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you're just
I
cleaning
think
up
that-
one spot all the time.
The high maintenance is good though, because it gets you out of your own head. You
Yeah.
know, it's like having, like my kids are all grown now, and my youngest kid now is 18. My oldest kid is, oh Jesus, 32. And I'll tell you something. Getting out of your own head and caring for for another creature is good for the soul. I think one of the problems that we have in this culture, and you guys have talked about the social media and all this kind of stuff, and I totally agree, is that it just locks you inside your own head, your own ego and your own interests. And, that's unique. That's a new thing. I mean, you had hermits and weirdo artists and Vincent Van Gogh who are like that, but now half the population is like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you got to
other
get out of
people
your
are
own
great
damn
in
head.
Small numbers.
yeah.
Yeah.
You got to get out of it though, because, it's a bad place to be. And again, so not only do you have the social media and all the pharmaceuticals and now you get the hormones that everybody's taking and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I think that just being locked inside your own head. I mean, I know being locked inside my own head's a terrible place to be. A lot of demons in there, man. So just getting outside of that, I think, is really healthy and really beautiful.
Well, you must have got a little bit of that out in your book there. I mean, I read your book and it was like I was watching a movie. It was great.
Everybody says that.
Really? Yeah. I mean, it felt like I was watching a movie.
What's the book called?
I was like, it's He Will Live Up in the Sky, I think it's called. Is that what it's called?
He will live up in the sky.
Yeah. It was fantastic. It's like a international, like a spy paranormal, thriller with, secret occult societies and
to fit right in with,
UFOs and music and musicians and detectives and
So it's like more detailed Dan
like
Brown.
the military industrial complex kind of like
fill in with Carl's book.
it's fantastic. Yeah.
Carl's
Yeah.
book was very similar to
Yeah.
that.
Cool.
I forget what it's called, and we wrote the foreword for it. Sorry, Carl.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. I'll tell you, one of my inspirations, two inspirations really,
X-Files.
but X-Files always, but Robert Anton Wilson's Illuminatus trilogy. I don't know if you guys have read that.
I haven't yet.
but
No.
Well, you have, you just don't realize it.
Yeah,
'cause it's
exactly.
sort of bled into the culture.
Yeah.
But also, there's a book called, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Italian novelist Umberto Eco. There was that movie, The Name of the Rose, with Sean Connery and everything back in the 80s. But he had written a book called Foucault's Pendulum, which is really it kickstarted this whole like Templar thing back in the early 90s. And, certainly Da Vinci Code and a lot of these books were sort of, bastardized stepchildren of that. But what Eco had done is that he'd sort of created this, very complex thriller, but had leavened it with reams and reams and reams of historical information. It's really a fantastic book in every way. It's marvelously entertaining, but it's also incredibly informative. But I read this back. Yeah, I read this back in the 90s, and it's just like I was just like, oh man, I got to write a book like that someday.
Cool.
I mean, it just really, really, really had a huge influence.
Yeah, that's what my favorite type is. It's like a fiction based on facts. Like you can see how it's taken from what could be really happening in a not exactly, but really could be happening at some level in,
like
in
1984
in our current world. Yeah.
Yeah, but more so where you learn things instead of just being ideas that are kind of ideas that you hadn't really thought of, that you start putting things together, but instead it really breaks it down and tells you like step by step how this castle is built or something, and why. And so you learn things from it.
Are you going to do another one or?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because this book, the paperback is 370 pages, I think. And it would have been a lot bigger. I'd cut a lot of material out.
Yeah.
And, I'd also, like what had happened when I first started plotting this book, I'd sort of plotted like a trilogy. And, some of the material got cut and some of it got put in from other sources and everything. But I definitely have the second book plotted out. And, I want to amp up that kind of tension that I started with the book. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious when you read the last chapter that I'm kind of setting up the inevitable sequel, God willing. But, I really wanted to write a book, like you said, that has that movie, that thrill ride kind of feeling. Again, I keep mentioning Gordon, but, one of the things that we're sort of discussing is that, we're both like so disillusioned with Hollywood, and we're disillusioned with just television and mass media and in general. And I think it's really time to get back to the written word, get back to books, getting back to novels, getting people, particularly men who don't read anything anymore, it seems, getting men to read novels again. I think it's really important. And, I think it's just your brain acts so much differently when you're reading a book than it is when you're just sort of sitting back and watching television. And I think that it's just much healthier. It's certainly much healthier to read a book than, spend all your time on Facebook or whatever. So, I think that, part of the I don't want to say the resistance because, that word's been sort of bastardized and it sounds stupid anyway, but, sort of like countering the toxic effects of the mass media is just getting back to, what anybody can do, just like writing a book, the written word. And, that I do believe it's a form of magic, when you can just sit down with nothing but words and create like this entire world in somebody's imagination. I think that's an incredible, powerful thing, creating characters that never existed, that were never born, but just seem like completely real to people, and that's something that I've experienced my entire life with different books that I've read, that I feel like I know these people, and, particularly if it's a series of books, very heavily influenced by detective stories, huge Elmore Leonard fan, Ed McBain, a lot of these kind of people, but just being able to create a reality with the spoken word or the written word. I think audiobooks are great. I'm actually working on an audiobook for this now. I want to do an audiobook version of this. So, I think it's just a good way, and certainly podcasts like this are a great antidote to the mass media. So I just think it's really just time to wean ourselves off this incredibly toxic and all-pervasive beast that is mass media.
100%, all of it.
Well, video and audio together.
That's like my mantra
powerful
right now. Just get the fuck rid of all that stuff. Cancel your cable.
Well, you've been reading lots of books too lately.
I've been reading lots of books.
And novels as well. Like you just described exactly where Darren's at.
I just finished.
Just got into the fiction stuff.
And I just started 100 Years of Solitude. What are some of your favorite novels?
Well, I'll tell you, my favorite novel of all time is A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. Did you ever read that one?
No, but I'll throw it on my list.
Well, the thing that I was terrified, like a few years ago, they were talking, they were going to do a movie of it with Will Ferrell. And I was just like, oh God, please don't ever do that. And actually, I think at some point, I believe they were talking about doing one with John Candy. So A Confederacy of Dunces is screamingly funny book. It's set in New Orleans in the 60s, and it was written by a guy who, so he had written this book and he couldn't get a publisher for it. I mean, I have no idea why he couldn't get a publisher for it because it's so brilliant, but maybe it was a little ahead of its time. So he couldn't get a publisher for it, so he killed himself. It's terrible, terrible story. And then somebody, I think his mother had sent the manuscript to somebody in New York, one of the big publishing houses at the time. And they were like, oh my God, this is the most brilliant novel I've ever read in my life. And it was published and it sold millions of copies and it won the Pulitzer and this and that and, all this kind of stuff. And I was reading it back when I was working in New York, and I'm like on the subway reading this book, and I'm just like nearly wetting myself laughing. And everybody was like, what are you reading? Like, what are you reading? And I was like, oh, this book, Confederacy of Dunces and all this kind of stuff. But I loved Martin Amis's books, his earlier books, Money, Dead Babies, The Rachel Papers, London Fields. Are you guys familiar with Martin Amis at all?
No.
British novelist. And again, like sort of a social satirist, but extremely. I love humor. I love to laugh when I'm reading a book. Elmore Leonard, any number of his books, huge fan of his. And of course, a lot of his books have been made into really good movies. Jackie Brown, which was made from Rum Punch. My favorite Tarantino movie, by the way. All kinds. The one with what was that? George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez. What was that movie called? Plays the bank robber. What's that?
I said George Clooney is a spy.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
100%.
No kidding. But he did some good movies for a while. But that's a great, and that Get Shorty, that John Travolta and Gene Hackman are in. Just a lot of good adaptations of his stuff. Just thinking who else. I mean, just so much. But I definitely lean towards genre. I'm a big one of my favorite writers. You guys might not know him, but a guy named James Lee Burke, who a few of his things have been made into movies. There was a movie called In the Electric Mist, which was based, Tommy Lee Jones starred in. It was based on a book he had written called In the Electric Mist with Confederate Dead, which was actually the first book of his I read. A lot of genre stuff. I'm not like, I guess I'm not super sophisticated, but I really liked, I just really enjoyed being entertained.
Yeah.
There's a guy from Boston who I really kind of cut my teeth on, a guy named Robert B. Parker, and he had written the Spencer books, and they got really, really bad after a while, but like the first 10 years of the Spencer books were just absolutely brilliant. And that became a TV series, and there've been a bunch of TV movies based on his stuff. And then he had written some other books that Tom Selleck had starred in adaptations of, but I love detective stuff because I love procedural. I love mysteries. I love like trying to figure things out. I love that kind of thing. So,
would you make a movie out of yours then, or did you try to do that? Or
it's funny because everybody's like, "What are you writing fiction for?" I thought you were a nonfiction guy. Well, actually, I started out like back in the '90s. I was writing. I was trying to get into screenplays. Trying to get into Hollywood, which ironically, the last. Well, not.
I thought you had comics in your background too somehow.
Well, yeah. Well, I did some comics, and one of the comics I did, Kevin Smith. Do you guys know Kevin Smith is?
Yeah, he's great.
James Silent Bob Striking Back, Clerks. So he was a big fan of this comic series I did. So I talked to him, and his people were like, "Well, listen, you should write a screenplay, and we're tight with the Weinsteins, and we'll get this thing going for you, and everything like that." So I'd worked with one of his people, and
Harvey.
No, I'd worked with a guy named Robert Hawk, who was basically the guy who discovered Kevin Smith, who discovered Clerks, and I'd worked with him and on the script and everything. I mean, he didn't work on the script, but he was sort of like my. I don't know what the term is. It's been so long, But so, basically he was sort of like
agent in a way.
Not even agent, but it was like he was a script consultant, basically, what it boils down to. So anyway, so I had gone through this whole rigmarole, and there was actually a studio in New York. Before I even got in touch with Kevin Smith, I was interested in it, and they ended up doing a movie called Jawbreaker with Rose McGowan and a couple other things, but they sort of dipped out of the movie business pretty early on. But anyway, the whole point of this is that, I've been writing a lot of screenplays and stuff and written some comic books and everything. And, so really it was fiction. That's where I came from. I came from like creating characters and all this kind of thing. And I'm always happy whenever I hear anything bad happen to the Weinstein brothers, because after this long and extraordinarily torturous process, my script had ended up on Bob Weinstein's desk, because he was running a sort of a subdivision of Miramax called Dimension. And so this whole big long thing, and he just basically passed on it and, said, "Oh, we've got something like this in production already." Just the usual Hollywood nonsense.
Yeah.
And I was just like crushed, because I was like, really? After all that time? So I always have sort of a chip on my shoulder about the Weinsteins. Anytime anything bad happens to them, I'm always like really, really, really happy to hear it. Of course, I mean, they have a lot. They made so many enemies because they were just, I don't know about Bob, but, certainly Harvey was just a total scumbag for so long. But then, here's another interesting story for you guys. And this sort of like, I don't know if it was my awakening or whatever. But so I was working on this script with a buddy of mine, and he lived in South End Avenue in Manhattan. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with South End Avenue, but his apartment building was across the street from the World Trade Center. And we were working on this script in the summer and late summer of 2001. And at the time, I was actually working in Lower Manhattan, a production house on Lafayette Street. So I was always like every day of the week in the summer of 2001, particularly like August and early September, I was in like the World Trade Center. I was either taking the train to the World Trade Center to hang out with like my buddy and work on the script. A lot of times I was taking the ferry, but or I was taking the train to World Trade Center to work for this company. And for some reason, I had that Tuesday off, and I don't know why. I literally don't know why, because I know I was in New York the previous day. I was in New York on Monday, and I don't know. They said, "Oh, we don't need you tomorrow," or something like that. So I was like, "Oh, I'm going to sleep in," and I think I slept till like 11 o'clock, and my wife woke me up and said, "You got to come down and see what's going on the television," because she was just freaking out.
Wow.
And but I'll tell you something. It's like literally almost everybody I knew was in Manhattan that day. Like all my friends were in Manhattan that day. Like everybody I was like working for or friendly with. And I'll tell you something else. The day before, on 9/10 that night, a buddy of mine had called and said that his cancer had returned, like on 9/10 of 2001. And his name was Richard Grasso. And I don't know if that name means anything to you, but Richard Grasso was the head, talk about synchronicity. He was the head of the New York Stock Exchange on 9/11. So, and my buddy's name was Richard Grasso, and
wow.
he passed away in January of 2002. So there was just like, I just had so many crazy synchronicities with 2001. And my son's best friend, or one of his best friends at the time, was his father was New York Fire Department. And this kid, I guess he was 14 years old at the time. He personally knew 50 guys who died in the towers that day. And then like next door to me, the guy next door to me is a bagpipe player. And he was, he's always like in funerals and parades and stuff. And he was out there practicing every single day. And I'm like, oh, there goes another funeral. You know what I mean? So it was crazy. It was just so nuts that, people just don't realize how crazy that was. And being where I am, one of my son's best friends, his father died that day, and like 17 people from this town I'm in died that day. And talk about like your apocalyptic mood, and that whole experience just like completely changed my life. But just the fact that, I was like in New York every day of the week, because I was in there on weekends working on the script with my buddy, who lived right across the street. Oh, and here's the other thing I neglected to mention is that he and his wife were like in the plaza when that all went down, and his wife was nearly killed because, one of the towers come down, there's all this smoke and all this crap, and she got separated from him, and she couldn't find her daughter. She got separated from her daughter. She's like 4 years old at the time. And and then the other tower comes down, and like literally some guy just like out of nowhere, she never even saw who it was, like grabs her and her daughter and like pulls her out of to safety and stuff.
Wow.
But that just totally messed my friend up. I mean, it just like completely, it ruined his life, because he's sitting there with his daughter who's in a stroller at the time, and they're watching people falling out of the buildings and everything like that, like right in front of him. He wasn't watching that on TV, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think a lot of that, really, I guess it ruined my life too,
Yeah.
It changed everything.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it really did. It changed everything for me because like I said, I got hit with all these crazy synchronicities, like really, like just brutal, like one after another.
And we got the Patriot Act.
I don't even remember them anymore. Like half of them I don't even remember. But like I spent, so I've no work because nobody's doing anything for like a month after that. I have nothing to do, so I'm just down. I just got a brand new computer with a blazingly fast 55K modem. I was like, oh man, this is a rocket ship, like 55K. Are you kidding me, man? I'm ready to go. So I'm constantly on the web, and this is back when Google was actually good, and it's just everything, it's like everything I'm doing now, really, I'm swear, like everything, like this book, this novel, all my other books, the blog, it really just springs from that month after 9/11 when I was just like freaking out because I'm like the synchronicities were just so overwhelming.
So were you going down the rabbit hole then? Like, were you skeptical of the main story? You were skeptical of the narrative and all that at that time, or?
I wasn't at the time. I wasn't skeptical of the narrative at the time, and I don't know, like maybe I was like a little, but it's
well, because you did,
everybody was in shock.
I was still in the Matrix.
Yeah, everybody was in shock for a long time after that.
And then you had like the DC Sniper. You just had like all this stuff. Like DC Sniper was like a couple months after that, and the anthrax letters and.
Yeah, I went back home during that DC Sniper thing, and I drove from Virginia to New York. And
it turns out that those fucks knew about the anthrax too. They were fucking vaccinated against it. They still let people die.
I guess I was in one of those rest areas around the same time that he was there.
God.
Like I actually almost crossed paths with that guy.
I was just recently on Aeon Byte with Miguel Connor talking about the book, and his whole theory that 9/11 and everything was. This is an interesting theory. I don't know if I subscribe to it, but he was like, that was just a way of like crushing Generation X, because like Generation X was kind of like not the band with Billy.
It did kind of let the air out of the tires for sure.
Yeah, because you had Generation X was kind of rising and starting to like force some of the boomers out of power, and they had like a whole different way, like very independent way of thinking and doing things.
The .com.
Yeah, like the .com bust was a few. Actually, I mean, it was kind of still going on at that time. It really started in the 2000s, but 2000. But you also had Enron. Oh man, what a crazy time that was!
Oh yeah, Enron.
So when did you start to be like really skeptical of the narrative and sort of, or are you even? I'm assuming you're kind of.
Oh, I'll tell you, man. I'm skeptical of all narratives.
Yeah, yeah. That's where it goes. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, man. It's really hard to describe because it
was a slow burn, slow awakening.
Yeah, but a lot of people like they won't like kind of talk about it out loud, but like even like a lot of quote unquote normies, don't really drink the Kool-Aid anymore, and it's kind of something that people don't really discuss anymore.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it again sort of emanated from that period, like that month like the entire month of just September and into like the first half of October, when I literally had nothing to do but just spend all my time on the internet. And of course, I had, like I said, I had this blazingly fast 55K modem, and I was just, it was a real experience for me. I don't think it was healthy. I don't think it was healthy. Spending all that time going down rabbit holes. I think you always need to be skeptical, and you always need to just, what did George Carlin say? He's like, I never believe anything the government tells me. I think that's always, really important to just always be incredibly skeptical of any official narrative.
Yeah.
As just a given, you know what I mean? Just like it's a given. Yeah. Because, when you're inside of it, I worked for advertising, and I've, worked in packaging and all that kind of stuff. You just realize that everything that reaches the public has all been like
sanitized.
Well, not even sanitized. It's all been like, it's all been war gamed, and it's all been like conferenced to death, and it's all been like think tanked, and it's all been like memoed. There's this whole process where everything is just, certainly everything you see in television and the mass media is always,
all scripted.
The fruits of a committee. It's a committee always working on things and hashing out the details and everything. And and like I said, when you've sort of dealt with the system directly, you really kind of see how the sausage is made. And boy, man, that's a awakening process. If ever you have one. I don't know if you guys had any dealings with the legal system or anything like that, but boy, that will open your eyes.
The way I see it, the last 100 years, all of the best psychological minds have been hijacked to work against us by advertising companies and tech companies and, government and everyone else, to work our own fucking brains against us.
Yeah.
I love that long A when you guys say against. That's great. So Canadian. No, you're absolutely right. I don't know if you guys ever watched Century of the Self, the BBC series.
We heard about that recently. We talked about it recently. Did you ever watch that, Darren? No.
I watched this show. I tried to get you to watch, but you wouldn't watch it because it had subtitles. Yeah. You're grumpy.
But you should definitely watch Century of the Self, because it really kind of shows you how a lot of this stuff came about. And again, like this niche marketing and the me generation and all this kind of stuff, where you start atomizing people into consumer groups, in that process that you said, where public relations. I mean, just the whole idea of public relations didn't exist 200 years ago. It was really something that was devised in the early 20th century, and it was actually devised. I mean, I don't know if you guys are familiar with William S. Burroughs, the old beat poet, but his he came from the boroughs. I don't know. It was like adding machines. There was some sort of fortune that was based in some sort of office equipment, but he also had another relative, I don't know if it was an uncle or whatever, who basically created public relations, created the first public relations firm, which was explicitly meant to, control narratives.
Yeah.
And, there are so many of them now. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable. It's just, people just, they don't understand how the infrastructure is just absolutely gargantuan,
Yeah. Hey, before we end up wrapping this up, Mike, did you want to talk about ABBA? Do you want to?
I don't know.
Go into that? We should. I mean, it's interesting.
I think you can listen. He's talked about it on other podcasts too. So,
I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to.
No, didn't you go off on the Cockatoo twins?
Cocteau.
Cocteau. Yeah. Who are ABBA on acid?
Sort of, yeah. And I thought I remembered listening to you when you were on Carlwood's show about talking about ABBA about that too.
Well, yeah, I think that reference that you're referring to.
I could have it all wrong.
No, I think I had sort of made a comparison about certain Cocteau Twins songs that were, very similar to ABBA songs. I loved ABBA. I'm a 70s kid, I'm old and crotchety. And I still remember being on the beach in Gloucester, Massachusetts when the first time that Waterloo was played in America. That's a very indelible experience for me because I love that song, but I associate it with like being, I guess I was 7 or 8 at the time, and being on the beach, and life just seemed sweet, and the world was your oyster, and all the good things were ahead of you. And I loved the sound of their voices. And I was in love when I was a kid with the blonde one, Agnetha, I think. Was it Agnetha? Because she always looked so sad. And she always sang the sad stuff. You'd see those videos, and like her forehead was just like all crinkled up with a frown. It's just like when you're a kid, that really appeals to you. Plus, I was in love with Cheryl Ladd, who was the Charlie's Angel, who replaced Farrah Fawcett. And she kind of looked like that, Yeah. But ABBA were great in the 70s, man. It was just like one song after another. It's just incredible.
Well, the music is so catchy and poppy, and then the lyrics are so dark and sad.
Well, wasn't there something about one of the guys being intelligence assets or something like that? Is that what you're thinking, or?
I don't know.
No,
I should have gone back and listened to it before I wasted time.
When I heard that Carlwood episode with you guys talking about the Cocteau Twins and the siren and all, that hit me pretty hard because in the 90s, like in 94, I fell in love with this Cocteau Twin song. And I just fucking loved it. And I was like, who are these Cocteau Twins? I was the only one that knew these guys, and I fell in love with the song. I went back and tried to find the song, and I cannot find it anywhere. I've listened to all of them trying to find that song, and I can't find it. They all sound sort of the same, or I can't figure out which one it is.
Yeah.
Well, that might be the Mandela effect. You're probably like, and this is going to sound facetious, but it's not. You're probably like phasing in and out of that different reality matrix that the Mandela effect people talk about. I mean, this is something that I've been talking about. Listen, it sounds ridiculous, but I was just talking to a friend of mine today about this, just like how just weird and fungible reality seems to be, that things are just not the way they used to be, particularly if you're a little long in the tooth like we all are. It's like you remember before all this internet and all this other crap was so prominent, but I don't know, man, I can't really describe it. Especially when you get into synchronicity, like, I think that synchronicity is not just like this little kind of goofy thing. I think it's a language. I do. I think it's a language, and I think it's a language that's beyond language. It's like
it's a recognition of future emotion.
But it's more than that, though, because it's like, okay, here's another thing. So I won't mention his name, but I was talking to this guy who wrote a book on precognition, and he's actually a scientist, and he's a science writer. And we sort of had this, debate going on about synchronicity, and his whole vibe, and this is something that I've heard from other people involved in this, is that synchronicity, it's all it's precognition. You're sensing things that are, your future in the time stream, something that's going to happen to you. And he has like all these formulas written out. It's really impressive what he's done with this. But, the thing I was trying to impart to him, and I don't know if I was successful, is that synchronicity isn't just like, oh, I thought of that ABBA song and then all of a sudden it came on the radio. But it wasn't just like it's on the radio, but it's like, then I got into a car accident. It's like, so, it was significant. It wasn't just a coincidence, a significant coincidence. But I think that synchronicity it transcends that. And like I said, this whole period after 9/11, when I got hit by these sinks that were just mind-boggling, I'm like, I still don't know why I wasn't in the city that day. It's so freaky. Like I should have been like in World Trade, like literally in that train station when that it was all going down, and I wasn't. I don't know why, but like all that synchronicity, it just hit me, and you realize it isn't just about you. It's like it's beyond you, and a lot of the synchronicities that you will experience are not, they're not something that you can just chalk up to precognition.
No, they're not. They're complex. There's many layers. It goes over time. I mean, there's something I wanted to ask you about because we've had other guests on too where we talk about it's not just synchronicity, but the coincidence of numbers and dates and symbols and going through time. And it seems to all have a deep state or a cultural kind of significance to it. And I was wondering if you thought that was like a higher power at play, or is there some work going on, intentional work going on from the powers that be that are creating these things? Like when an event happens on a day where it's impossible that it's just that day. There's so many intertwined things. Like, is it both? Is it like something greater at work, or is it intention from?
Dude, it's all of the above.
Yeah.
And what you're referring to, I mean, you're really getting down to what the essence of magic is. And, people who are really involved in, and, even like Crowley kind of, real heavy, deep occult, dark occult, black magic, really what it's, they're boiling down to is that they're basically trying to manipulate synchronicity. They're trying to manipulate,
reality.
Like an event occurs, but it's wed to this really potent symbol system. So what you're talking about, with some sort of deep state or some sort of cabal or whomever manipulating this stuff. Yeah, I mean, this stuff has been going on for hundreds, thousands of years. I mean, why do you think holidays are about? Like why do we just pick some day in the middle of the year and just inject all this like super heavy symbolism into it that has nothing to do with anything, like why do we do this? Like names and, even just like the whole idea of names, like names were a form of magic, you were trying to control something by giving it, a label. And this is something that, magic has always been about, is like understanding, like, if you knew the demons' names and you knew their secret names and you knew like all this other bullshit, you could control them somehow. I think that's all insanity and always backfires. But, either way, this is what grimoires were about. This is why people wrote grimoires in the Middle Ages, because they thought if they could figure out the names of the princes of hell and their titles and what they like to have for breakfast and all this kind of bullshit, that they could somehow like
summon them
and then enslave them and have them do their will and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, that always ended badly. And that never worked out for anybody. But still, it's really about, synchronicity. So here's the thing. I have this kind of saying. So it's like, coincidences are one thing, some highly symbolic coincidences are another thing, right? But then there's like symbolically supercharged significant coincidence. And that's just like a whole other level. That's when like, all the toys come out of the toy box and everything's injected into this whole event in this day or this, whatever you choose to mention. And this is why we're seeing all this symbolism constantly that, stuff that only like weirdos like me knew about 20 years ago. Why it's just everywhere you look now, because everybody is trying to like manipulate this stuff. Everybody's trying to make it work for them. And I'll tell you two things. First of all, I believe very strongly in the spirit world. I believe in the spirits and the spiritual world. Mm-hmm. And it's something that is a daily reality for me. And if you believe in the spirit world, you believe that they're like spirits that aren't like really on your side and don't really give a shit about you. You know what I'm saying? So like say, oh, I'm going to hex Trump, and I'm going to call on Azazel and Belial and, Asmodeus and everything like that. Like, why do they give a shit about you? What do you have to offer them? You don't have anything. You know what I mean? So they might say, oh, we're going to do this for you because they're all liars. And then they're going to like destroy your life. I mean, how many times has that happened? I mean, okay, so Led Zeppelin, right? Jimmy Page, top occultist, tight with Kenneth Anger for a while, Crowley Library and everything. I mean, look what happened to Led Zeppelin. I mean, Jesus Christ, everything just completely just went totally haywire for them. Like in 1977, like Robert Plant's son died, a couple of years before they get into a car accident. They have this tour and all this crazy stuff happens. And then, a couple of years later, John Bonham dies. And then Jimmy Page is just sort of like trapped in this heroin hell for years. Like everything just fell apart for them because that's what happens when you call on unclean spirits. I hate to break the news to anybody who thinks they're going to get that stuff to work for them, but they're not. I mean, you might think they will, and you might things might work out for you for a while, but I tell you, I've studied the history of magicians and black magicians and all these kind of people. It always goes wrong, man. It always goes bad. So it's like you gotta stay on the straight and narrow path if you're gonna start messing around with stuff. Believe me. And the problem is that nobody's telling all these dumb kids out there that's the way it works. And I just think we're really in for a train wreck.
I really fantastic. Do. I agree too. I think that's why it's synchronicity seem to be increasing, and it's like an egregore of people playing with magic.
And like when you go to, I have young kids now, and you go to look at all the different books that are out there for kids now, it's all about magic, like everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, started
not
with
even Harry Potter,
right?
like all the kids' books, they're all about magic now. It's hard to find a book for like a 6 to 10-year-old kid that's not just completely soaked in magic.
Which is interesting because there is something about, like gaining what you wish for and manifesting, your life. I mean, controlling reality to a certain point.
I remember I had a really hard time because I would precog things, and I was upset about the fact, like I saw our dog get hit by a car like before it happened, and I was really upset about it because I didn't know. It's really confusing. Did I
cause it? Or
did I cause it? And that really freaks you out, I think, as a kid. You begin to wonder, like, am I causing these things because my emotions get out of control? Or is it just coincidence? Or am I kind of, like you were saying, the emotion is so strong that you actually pick up on it before it happens?
Well,
I think that's...
Can I just weigh in with one other thing? I know I'm probably bogarting a lot of your time.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's your show.
So, you're talking about like the whole thing with kids and the magic and all this kind of stuff. You guys are Canadian. Are you guys Dan Aykroyd fans at all?
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Okay, so Dan Aykroyd used to be on Saturday Night Live. And again, I'm old enough. Like, I remember when I was like 10 years old, like forcing myself to wait up so I could watch Saturday Night Live because I just thought it was like the greatest thing. So Dan Aykroyd did this skit. He was like this cheesy toy manufacturer called Irvin Mainway, and it was like I'm sorry, man. I'm just laughing because I just remember how funny this shit was. So he's like this sleazy toy manufacturer. It was like Pretty Peggy ear piercing set, Mr. Skin Grafter, General Tron secret police confession kit, and Doggy Dentist. And then like one of the toys is like bag of glass. Oh man, I'm just laughing. It was like, like he's being interviewed on a TV show, and it's like, this is just a bag of broken glass. But to me, that's exact same thing. Like when you're talking about like when you're giving these kids this whole all this magic stuff. I mean, believe me, I mean, I was a kid in the 70s when a lot of this kind of stuff was in the comic books and everything, and especially the comic books that I was reading, and I just sort of like, I didn't take it seriously because this is the 70s and it's just kind of like containment. But now you have this whole mindset where kids are going to go online, and it's like they're taking this stuff more seriously, and they're screwing around with this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like, there's a great line. This guy named Ed Foreman, who is close friends with Jack Parsons. He worked for Jack Parsons, and he was a rocket designer. And he had some of Jack Parsons' books in his library. So he's sitting there in his library just chilling out, maybe having a scotch and a smoke. And his daughter comes in and starts looking at the, Jack Parsons' books. And Ed Foreman says to her, it's like, stay away from that stuff. It's all real and it all works. And it'll mess up your life forever. Stay the hell away from it. And, I think with a lot of this stuff, I mean, nobody's telling people that, all these hipsters who think they can, mess with these grimoires and call up these demons and all this kind of stuff. And you think, oh, nothing really happened, it's just, I did this and it was just kind of art. It's like an art project. But then then it happens, then the shit happens and you realize, and then your life is fucked. You know what I'm saying? It's just like these energies that you're calling up, the spirits that you're calling up, man, like oh, hey man, I just read this book, no harm done. And then like, I just lost my job and I just got into a car accident and it turns out I have this tumor on my leg and one thing after another. And it's just like nobody sort of makes that connection. And I'll tell you something, people who are really good at this stuff, throughout history, thought they could mess with this stuff and it destroyed their lives. People who are a lot smarter than any of us and certainly a lot smarter than these dopey kids who think they can call up demons.
Yeah, for sure.
What about just safely protection, like, using protection magic, stuff like that without the actual summoning part? I mean, is there a big difference between, the types and the intention and that kind of stuff?
I think there is. And, but I'll tell you, I don't mess with any of that stuff either. My whole thing is just like getting out there and just sort of, vibing on nature spirits and ancestral spirits and all this kind of stuff. And, not necessarily asking them to, balance my checkbook or whatever, the thing that you got to just be really super careful of. And again, like a skeptic is just going to laugh at you and somebody who's just sort of a dabbler is just going to say, oh, hey man, it's cool. I know what I'm doing, whatever. Okay. So if I come up to you, right. And I go, hey man, I need $20. Can you lend me $20? And you're like, oh yeah, here you go. Here's $20. Right. And then you're going to be like, that dude owes me $20. You know what I'm saying? That dude owes me $20. So it's like, I might forget about it, but in your mind, you're going to be like, oh, that dude owes me something. You know what I mean? And if I ask you for $20 again, and I keep asking you for $20, you're going to either stop giving it to me or like say, okay, well, guess what, man? I want you to like, clean up my truck, you gotta earn this money. So if you can just mess around with the spirit world, again, which is very real to me, what the hell are you doing for them? You know what I'm saying? If you're calling on a spirit to do something for you, what do you have to offer them in exchange?
Yep.
And anybody who's experiencing this stuff will tell you that the spirit world is like, they're great accountants. You know what I'm saying? Like they keep track of this shit. So
I think the trick is when you give them $20, you don't expect to ever see it again. Like here, yeah, I'll give you $20, but make sure you use it for something or ask them what you're going to use it for and buy them that instead.
I got it.
But don't expect the $20 back.
Yeah. I got to read something here. I just got an email. It must be somebody that's listening in. I got to read this, Chris. Hi Graham. I just recently was on a quest to find a specific Cocteau Twins song. I listened to all I had, went online and listened. I recently bought the Apple HomePad on Black Friday weekend. It came with 4 months of Apple Music for free. I went through that too, no luck. Then a memory popped in. It was not a Cocteau Twins song at all. LOL. It was a band on the same 4AD label, this Mortal Coil. Liz Fraser was the singer from Cocteau Twins. The song is Song to the Siren, a Tim Buckley cover. Liz sings over a sparse musical backdrop, beautiful as I remember. Took roughly 3 to 4 months off and on. I really wish you can find your song. I'd be happy to help in any way.
You got a song, buddy.
Fucking weird.
Well, when we get off the air, just maybe describe it to me. Don't forget there were a lot of bands at that time who were imitating them. There's bands like the Sundays and the Sugar Cubes, and a lot of people were sort of doing that kind of vibe. So maybe it wasn't even them. Maybe it was like one of the bands that were kind of doing that whole kind of flavor. But that's that whole thing with the siren. That's just
that's crazy. I listened to your show on that like 3 or 4 times. It was just so mind blowing.
Yeah.
Well, that's a rabbit hole that, like, it has no bottom. There's no bottom to that. And like I said, you talk about Lovecraft and the old ones, and people go, "Oh, that's just science fiction." Well, listen, you're in Canada. I don't know how it is up there. I know you get the Tim Hortons up there. But, if you're down in America, anytime you go to any downtown shopping district or whatever, you're going to see that big friggin' siren, sitting in front of a Starbucks. And you go to any supermarket or grocery store or convenience store and you go to the beverage aisle, you're going to see that siren everywhere you look. And that's how this stuff works, and people don't understand it. It's like people, like Harry Potter and everything, gives people a very distorted sense of magic and the occult, and that it's sort of like you're just dealing with genies, and that's not the way it works. It's kind of like turning a ship. You know what I'm saying? Like you could be on a ship and it's making a 180-degree turn, and you don't even realize that anything's happened. It just seems like you're just sort of sailing right along, because these kind of things, they take time and they work on a much different. They have a much different understanding of time than we do. If you're talking about a spirit that isn't worried about dying when they're 70, right? I mean, they're going to have like a whole different kind of take on time. So they've got their own schedules, and like I said, I mean, it's like, people are going to do what they want. I mean, I'm nobody. Nobody's going to listen to me. But I'm just saying, like, if you're going to mess around with magic or any of that kind of stuff, make sure that who you're dealing with. If you're calling somebody, or if you're opening a door, you better know who the hell's on the other side of it, right? And that's basically my whole trip.
Well, and you may never know. That's the problem with opening these doors is,
Well, I have this. I was talking to Gordon today, and 2 days ago was the anniversary of a really horrific event in my family's life. A young girl who had killed herself, and it was just like really shattering, and it still is in a lot of ways. But in the aftermath of that, we had, and it wasn't just us; it was a lot of people had legitimate paranormal experiences that things were happening that were very strange. We had all this stuff going on with our electricity and our phones. I mean, just weird stuff. My wife's phone had called this girl's mother in the middle of the night by itself. I mean, just all this crazy stuff that was going on, and it was really unpleasant, and it was actually kind of horrible. And I said to Gordon tonight, I was like, I hate the paranormal. I hate the paranormal because the paranormal is always about death. It's always centered on death, and people think the paranormal isn't real and all this kind of stuff. It is real, and it usually happens when something really bad is happening, like when somebody's dying or is about to die. So people are messing around with like ghost hunting and everything like that. It's like, I'm not going to try to discourage anybody from doing what they want to do, but stop pretending that it's not real, and it's a game that you can play, and just realize that UFOs, the ghosts, all this kind of stuff that everybody just thinks is a joke. It's not a joke, and it usually manifests when something bad is about to happen. Or something bad did happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't want to sound like I'm this huge wet blanket, but it's just like you get to be my age and you sort of get a little bit of mileage under your belt, and you just start to see things in a different perspective. I mean, look at John Keel. I mean, I don't know if you guys have read any of his stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I read one of his essays in our feed. Yeah.
He was that dude was just like, don't even, put my damn, thanks for buying my book. Now put it down and forget anything you ever read. It's like that's how radical he was getting, because something happened to that dude. Like, I've talked to some people who sort of were on his, the fringes of his orbit, and something bad happened to that dude in the 70s, I think, in the 70s. Something that just like really freaked him out and really changed his whole viewpoint and got him like super paranoid and super obsessed with like demonology and stuff. So like I said, I'm not gonna nobody's gonna listen to me in the first place, but when you're talking about a lot of this stuff, you just got to be super careful. Here's a great case in point. So my son and his friends had they were working at this big golf course in the middle of this unbelievably rich neighborhood. And they were closing up, and it was getting dark, and these 3 UFOs just appear like over the golf course, and they're just sitting there. And my son took some footage of it, but he had a crappy phone, so it looks kind of crappy. And they're all just sitting there watching it. And he was really interested in it. And then like a week later, he was just like, he didn't even want to talk about it. He was just like, just no, you know, I don't know what happened. I don't even know if anything happened or it just sort of sunk in. Because like when you see that, man, I mean, we had a UFO sitting over my neighborhood, and I blogged about this in February of 2017.
Is this the one you saw in 2015?
No, that was a different one.
Okay,
this is the one that I blogged about, and it's actually here I am a big hypocrite, because if you look at the masthead of my blog, there's an image of it. So I was out there like looking at this thing and talk about synchronicity. I just watched the movie, The Man Who. What the hell's the name of that movie? The Man, the
Stare Goats? No.
It was like, it was about that dude. He was in that band in the 80s, and he lives down in, I think in like Monterey, and he sees UFOs all the time. I think a lot of it's like military stuff that he's seeing. But there was a Netflix documentary about this dude, and I just watched it. Like, so just talk about synchronicity. So I just watched this documentary about this dude who's like, he's got thousands and thousands of hours of UFOs, and most of them are orbs, right? So I go out and I'm taking the dogs out, and it's after midnight, and I see this like plane come up, and I'm like, wow, that's a big ass plane. And then it just stops, and I'm like, wow, that's a big ass plane that stopped in the middle of the sky. And then I look at it again, I'm like, that's not a plane, that's a chevron. It's like that classic chevron UFO. And actually the thing that I saw, I a few months later, some people like in Colorado and Texas and a bunch of other places like in that southwestern area had taken footage of this thing, these things as well. So, you're sitting there looking at it, and you're like, oh, wow, that's cool. Oh, man, like my first like real heavy duty UFO, like right there, man, like there it is. I'm taking, my wife's trying to take pictures of it and stuff. And, we're taking photographs of it and all this kind of stuff. And then like, you're like, what the hell is that damn thing? And why is it sitting over my neighborhood? Like that kind of just like sinks in, you know what I mean? Like, oh, like that's not normal. And why is it here? you know? Like, what does it want? You're like, and I'm not too far from an air base. McGuire Air Force Base is about, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes from air from here. So you're thinking, oh, is that like some sort of drone, or is that some sort of experimental aircraft? But it's like, I don't know, man. I'm looking at this thing, and those lights are friggin' huge, and like that doesn't look very aerodynamic to me. And like, what the hell is that thing doing? And like, why is it so damn bright? I mean, it's really, really bright. And actually, somebody had said that they thought like what I thought were lights were like some sort of plasma units. You know what I mean? Like they were like some sort of like propulsion system, like plasma. And that's why it was lighted up. But I'm just like sitting there going, wow, that's really intense. And like, and then like things like went really wrong after that. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of like not good stuff happened after that experience. And I'm just thinking, is that just coincidental? Is there some sort of connection? But, you hear a lot about this stuff. And, I wasn't asking for it, but it was this crazy synchronicity that I just watched this movie about UFOs, this documentary about UFOs. And then there's one sitting over my neighborhood for 20 minutes. And we even just got sick of looking at it. And we're like, okay, whatever, there it is. And we went in the house. But yeah, man, it's just like, I hate the paranormal now. I really do. I know that sounds like a terrible thing to say, but like people out there looking for Bigfoot and all this kind of stuff, man, it's like, Lauren Coleman, I don't know if you know his stuff, but he's talked about like how like Mothman and Bigfoot and all this stuff, like there's curses attached to them. People go out looking for this stuff, end up dying. I'm just like, yeah, this stuff's really interesting. Stay the hell away. Watch it from a safe distance. That's like, if you take anything away from my whole ranting and raving tonight, it's like, yeah, paranormal, whatever, ghosts, Bigfoot, I don't know, whatever. Just maintain a safe distance from all the stuff.
Don't go out in a field and call them.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's so interesting, because that's what we've been doing, and but my attitude's starting to change about UFOs.
Is it?
I mean, oh yeah. I just, you can ask Darren. It's like, well, we had this guy on, and I don't know, just gave me a different perspective of, a disclosure in the whole UFO thing, and whether ETs are visiting or not. And I mean, we go out and we see shit in the sky, right? We flash,
for sure,
flashing lights and flash bulbs and low flying aircraft, and it's like, well, why are they allowing the secrecy to still there. Like there's some conundrums there.
To me, a big thing that's
with it.
missing is subtle energy. And there's a subtle energy that connects everything. And we're just too gross to feel it and to acknowledge it. And so then a lot of the things that I think Chris is calling paranormal are more like energy spikes. And so then you begin to become aware of that subtle energy because it's so loud, let's call it. But you don't want to.
Keel talks about that, the super spectrum. I know exactly,
but you don't want to shy away from the subtle energy because there's a lot of stuff there that we should be working on.
No, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, maintain a safe distance.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
And I say this to people not to be like a wet blanket and a buzzkill. I say this because, I care about human beings and I want people to be safe. And I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, listen, it's stuff that I've been talking about and writing about for a long time.
Yep.
At the same point in time, it's just like, I don't know if something's changed, there are theories that we all died in 2012 and were placed on some sort of
we're on a memory stick now,
world or dark city kind of world. I mean, I don't know, but I feel to me like things are very different now. And when everybody's focused on things, you talk about the power of intention and the power of focus. That heightens these energies and amplifies these energies. And energies are great. You can power your car with them, but they can also explode in your face. So I really, really feel. And you'd have to talk to people a lot smarter than me about how to protect yourself when you're getting into this stuff. But I just really feel it's important to watch it back.
I really feel that the Wi-Fi now has created like an energy web of a grid that really makes it to where you can't feel the subtle energy as much. Because I started meditating in 2001. I really think about 2001. I go back every day. So many crazy things have happened to change my life in the year of 2001, starting right at the very beginning of the year, and learning to meditate in a more functional way, actually learning techniques and being able to focus it. And since, I don't know, kind of maybe 2012, but I would say closer to 2015, it seems as though it's harder to focus your mind now in a lot of ways. Mostly because I think it's the EM is all around us, the Wi-Fi. It's making it to where
smog,
it's making it to where you can't even ground and center yourself anymore. There's this always electronic hum going on in the background.
Absolutely. And where I am, I didn't even realize this until a year after it started, but they've been doing the 5G stuff here too. So
Yep.
I think that's a huge factor. But who knows what's really behind all that? Do we really need Wi-Fi? Is it really necessary? I don't know. I was getting along fine plugging shit into the wall.
Totally.
So I don't know, man. Do we really need it, or is it? There is some sort of plan going on. I don't know, but I just, like I said, I really feel that everything is just so amped up and so accelerated and amplified that I really feel that I need to impart to anybody who will be stupid enough to listen to me that you got to just be just much more careful than you've ever been. I really feel that way because there are just so many. People kind of overloading the circuits now that it's just, I feel like it's really dangerous. And, like I said, this is not some sort of abstract thing that I'm saying. Look at how many people just really seem either clinically insane or demonically possessed nowadays. You know what I'm saying? If you really stop to look at it, you're like, oh, shit, yeah, that's the way things are going. Everybody seems like they're either insane or possessed. Not everybody, of course, but so much more people than ever before are just losing it. And I don't think that's an accident to history. I think it's because of all these processes that we've been discussing tonight. I think it's a direct. Matter of fact, I think it's a direct result of all these processes that we've been discussing tonight.
I totally
There you
agree.
have it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, every civilization has collapsed since the start of, I heard somebody say
Well,
that
all of
on
them
a-
up till now. Because
Well, and now it's and now it's global. And now it's the first time we've been really global. So
Maybe the
it's
first
interesting to see.
That's a pretty arrogant assumption.
Yeah,
So everybody buy my new novel.
Yeah,
for sure. I would
yeah,
like
and
to.
check out your blog and keep in touch with what's going on with you. I mean,
Can't wait to
Yeah.
see
You will
part
live up
2.
to this guy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's funny because I mean, a lot of this stuff, a lot of stuff in the novel is based on actual experiences, and a lot of it is this kind of process where all this crazy paranormal stuff was happening in my own life, and I'm not exactly sure that I came out on the other side completely intact. So I wish I could say otherwise, but I think it if nothing else made a great read.
oh yeah, it's a great book.
$17 paperback on
It's-
Amazon.
Yeah, it's a great book. I recommend it highly to
We'll
people.
put a link in the show notes.
And I can't wait for it. Well, let us know when it comes out on audio, and we'll just plug it again.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's gonna take a while. I'm working with a producer who's really keen and really loves the book. So
Awesome.
yeah,
You're gonna have
Reading
like
it
different
yourself?
characters and stuff like that, or is it gonna be?
I don't know.
Or how? Yeah, it's
I
hard
don't know
because
yet. It's a little too early in the process. But I'll tell you something. I was a big audiobook guy for a long time.
Yeah.
And the favorite readers that I had were always like very deadpan and very
Yep.
understated.
Yep.
I mean, somebody goes, "Oh, you got to listen to these Harry Potter books." This guy does he's got the Guinness Book World Records for like most different accents in an audiobook, which is kind of a weird Guinness Book of World Record. But I listened to it. I don't think I got this is back in the tape days. I don't think I got through one side of one tape because I'm just I want to strangle this guy.
Yeah.
I literally want to
It's
strangle.
too over
this
the
guy
top.
because It's just it's distracting.
Yep.
I wanted to get lost in the story. I want to get lost. I don't want to hear about how many different dialects of Cockney this guy can do. I just want to get lost in the story. I don't care about how, what a great thespian he is. I just want to lose myself. And I find that you lose yourself in a story best when you're not being distracted by all the razzle dazzle.
Yeah, my favorite narrator's like Stefan Rudnicki, who he has 5 or 6, he's got a couple guy voices, a couple female voices, and they're not even real voices. He just changes it slightly so that who's talking, and it's just simple like that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, the intonation.
Yeah,
He changes
it's just,
the intonation.
Yeah, just a little bit of that so that it's, who's saying what, and it's not, he's not going into full blown character, but he's a great narrator.
I'll take a look for that.
Yeah.
Shoot me an email with the guy's name.
I will. Yeah. Love it. He does a lot of fiction.
All right,
too.
gentlemen.
Thanks a lot,
awesome.
man. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Greatly enjoyed it, and you bastards better have me on again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I can't wait.
You should come to
And
Utah.
Yeah.
you Wexit bastards. Utah.
Yeah. Star Myths with David Matheson. We got 2 nights or 3 nights in the desert looking at the stars.
Oh, that sounds like it's right in my ballywick.
Oh, yeah.
I was really into the stars, and I thought I knew a lot about it. And I went out to Utah, and I was blown away. You think there's 1 million stars, there's actually 1 billion more, and then 2 seconds later, there's 1 trillion more. The more you let your eyes adjust to the darkness, there literally is infinite stars out there, and you have no idea until you go out to a desert like Utah.
Well, that sounds like my idea of fun for real. So, wait, when are you guys doing this again?
April
16th to 19th.
Oh, cool! I'll start saving my pennies now, dudes.
All right.
We can all chill. That
There you
sounds
go.
like a awesome time.
Right on.
Shoot us
All
an
right,
email.
gents.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Take care. Have
my
a good
pleasure. My pleasure. My pleasure.
night. Okay.
Wonderful
night,
to meet you.
gents.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Bye-bye.
Wow.
Well, thanks for going long, Darren. That was fun. I wanted to keep it going because it got
Yeah. It's
like
great.
the first half, we were kind of just shooting the shit about cultural stuff, but second half we're getting into the nitty gritty of some stuff and the occult and the magic. I mean, it's just fantastic. I love talking to guys that just know so much like that. It's unbelievable.
Big thanks to Chris for coming on the show. Come back anytime. Check out his blog, Secret Sun blog, the Secret Sun blog, Blogspot, I think. Blogspot.thesecretsunblog.com.
Yeah.
I think it's Secret Sun blog will just bring it up. Whatever.
Yeah, I just Googled the Secret Sun blog and it came right up.
Link in the show notes.
Yeah, for the 3% of people that check the show notes. Swipe
That's a lot
right.
of people.
That
It's
is
more people than donate.
That is way
So
more.
put it in
people. That's
perspective for you.
times.
3 times the donations.
I would prefer you donated. If it's between donating or checking out the show notes, go ahead.
Or how about the 3% of the people that go to the show notes just go a little bit further down and donate?
And support the show.
Yeah.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Grimerica.ca/support. We could use a little support because we love you. Christmas coming. Little Christmas bonus for the Grimerica guys. Grimerica.ca/support. Of course, this won't come out till after Christmas. What's this, Chinese Christmas or something?
Sure.
Or is that New Year's?
I don't think the Chinese do Christmas. They're communist.
Oh my God.
Everyone just gets the same present.
Pretty much.
All right. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. It's a happier place to be.
Maple syrup is the best. It's so
Yeah.
good. Oh. Just be present with me and love me.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. When they start doing this weird hello.
Hey, Grimericans, that's the way you do it. Listen to Grimerica on the World Wide Web. Hey, Grimericans, that's the way you do it. Donate to Grimerica on the World Wide Web. Hey, Grimericans, that's the way you do it. Money for something good, vibes for free.
Because without support, it all comes to a grinding halt. So keep lubing the system with your support dollars. Grimerica.ca/support.
Touch it and feel it. Let meditate with it on mushrooms. Do a whole spiritual thing with it. See what happens.
We could smudge it.
Oh, it smells. You can't. It smells. No, your energy body's always with you, though. It's around me. It's my aura that's around me now. It's interloping and overlapping with your aura.
Keep your fucking energy beings off of it. All right? You're making it weird.
Okay, whatever. Just be present with me and love me.
Just keep your energy body off my energy body and we'll be fine. There's no overlapping.
Interloping.
There's no interlope.
I might have used the wrong word there.
Long day in the studio.
Yeah, long day.
Be nice to Graham. He's sensitive.
That's the one that got read to me when somebody found the poll.
I'm more sensitive than I let on.
Most people are.
Graham lets on a lot, so that's why we know there's a lot under this, a lot of iceberg underneath.
A lot of steam puff.
A lot of steam puff and
Hot
ice
stuff. Okay, that's fine.
it.
That's our only rule in Grimerica.
There's more rules than that, and I make them up as I go, so get used to it.
Oh, look at that. It's disgusting. It's a half of a skull. And it smells. It's all dirty.
I don't think you need all this technology. If it's consciousness, then maybe, I can go to wherever I need to go in a fucking trash can if I can get my head straight.
They changed their whole meow and they started doing this weird hello.
Take it easy. It's not quite like that.
They say hello.
Hello. They do. There's a jingle. There's a jingle waiting to happen. The unique snowflake. It's all triangles. One day we'll be selling muffin cookbooks for $150 a piece on some separate entity so that we can get paid for Grimerica, and that'll be like the thing. Head to SusiesMuffins.com and buy a book if you want to support the show.